at the 20-yard line. KJ back to throw. Jefferson, look. Jefferson throws to the end zone. Caught! Touchdown! Kobe Hudson! 37 seconds to go. Kobe Hudson makes the catch and a PAT from taking the lead.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
Oh, look at Arch Manning. Oh, hit him with the two-step. Arch Manning, touchdown.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Williams into the end zone, and LSU this time does reach Pater, and they take the lead with 1:12 to play.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Punt is off. Muse. Chance for near the Big 12 logo. 25. Oh, nice sidestep. Still up. Muse. Sudden. Dangerous. All the way. 4-6.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Evan Pryor breaking a big run inside the 30. There goes Pryor to the end zone. Touchdown, Bearcats.
Now here's Paul Catalina.
Welcome in. A smokeless Thursday. We're in the non-smoking section. The puns are going to keep coming, people. You know, I'm here. Garrett and I are here by ourselves. Emery's on his way to Colorado. Jack's about to be on his way to Colorado. Smokey and Craig are off in Mansfield doing a high school game, and then they're going to Nebraska. And Garrett and I have run this place. Literally, it's me and him.
Yep.
For the next 4 days. 3 days. I guess we could come in here Sunday, but that's not going to happen.
No.
So we have run of this place, Garrett. And, you know, I would like to say when the cat's away, the mice will play or whatever, but that's not really how it happens around here. We just kind of do the same thing again.
Just got to keep chugging, man.
We got to keep chugging. So we have to do, 2 solo or duo shows here. It's you and me. We're in this together now. And, look, I enjoy it. I have, I like that building speed. Smoke them if you got them. Bracket Cat says, I'm cutting Big 12 leader short for this. You better deliver, Paul. It's pressure. That's a lot of pressure. I appreciate that you guys watch this appointment viewing, but the great thing about YouTube is it doesn't have to be appointment viewing at all. But we certainly appreciate when you do. I'm over here in the studio. Garrett is in the tool shed back there. That's with that table behind you. That's what it looks like.
It definitely does. It's giving off tool shed vibes now.
Yeah, like
we'll go from there.
Like your dad going, Garrett, go get the table.
Yeah.
It's in the shed. It's in the shed.
I mean, I think you know that the other day with Jack talking like Jack's your dad. I get that a lot from Jack. Like, go get something. I'm like, bro, come on.
Yeah. No. That is absolutely Jack. I can't wait for Jack to have kids. Honestly, like, I can't wait to see that because he's already got it down.
Oh, he's nailed it, yeah.
He's already got that part of it down. I mean, there's other things I'm sure he'll have to learn, but already at 24 years old, he's already got the, like, listen, I need your help.
Don't mess it up.
Don't mess it up. And when you do mess up, I'm going to give you a really, really, really crappy look.
Yep.
It is. I mean, it's
fascinating.
It's unbelievable. He's hit that. He's hit that well. All we need to do is get him some, like, Jim Harbaugh khakis.
Oh, he was set it off.
Yeah. He could, like, the Jim Harbaugh dad khakis. He needs some glasses. Like, he's definitely a guy that, like, I hope I'm alive when Jack is 50. That's a long time from now. I'll be like 70. But when Jack is 50, I really would like to see him and, like, you damn kids. So noisy. Like, he's that. Like, he's going to be that.
Definitely.
Like, he'll be a cool dad, but, like, he'll also be the one that's like, look, we are building we are building a staircase today, all right? That's going to go to the back room. And you and your brother are going to help me, and you're not going to complain about it. And then you're going to mow the damn lawn.
That sounds very Bob Stoops.
Yeah. I'm sure that's kind of how he was.
That's exactly.
So, but anyway, let's get on to it. Let's get to the smokestack. We've got today a lot of cool guests. Sam Kahn of The Athletic. Matt McChesney will join us again, former Colorado defensive lineman, while picking up his kids, by the way. But he'll be on with us. Adam Rittenberg at ESPN. David Teal of the Times-Dispatch. He'll talk ACC with us. He wrote a column about what are the benefits of the ACC reuniting, getting that done. And again, there's no timetable for it, and we'll talk about that in a second. And Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com. That's all coming up. But diving in, this is Jeff Traylor last night on his coach's show talking about the possibility and the research going into UTSA from the Pac-12.
Compost is more privy to that information than I am, but her and I have talked quite a bit the last few days about that. And obviously, we're committed to the league we're in, and we're very grateful for the AAC, but we have to listen to people that want to talk to us. And I just think it has to make sense for us. Obviously, geographically, it might not be as aligned as the AAC is, but financially, what does that look like for us? We're a program that's only been playing ball for 13 years. Most of our limitations are strictly just that. We have a booster base that's very loyal. They help us. There's just not a lot of us because we haven't been around very long. Mm-hmm. So it's the same people always having to do the most. And if you have the ability to go somewhere that can expedite the growth of a 13-year program, you've got to listen to it. So what does that look like for us? The details, one, she'd kill me if I said it, but two, she's got to be the one to decide that. And obviously President Amy, is the juice worth the squeeze?
Right.
And I'm just not for sure what that looks like exactly yet, but I do know that that is a real conversation that's happening as we speak.
So there you go. Most coaches are not that candid about it, but Jeff Traylor, we know him well. He's a candid guy. And I think to me, UTSA, Texas State, and North Texas have to be vetted.
Oh yeah.
In that situation, because they're very on par with the schools that they've already added in the states that they've all added from the Mountain West. Like, those schools are very on par. If it were me and I'm creating the new Pac-12 and they're already at the new Pac-6,
right,
I would add, for sure, I would add North Texas, UTSA, Texas State, Memphis, Tulane, and
UNLV, right?
And UNLV.
Yeah.
Those are the 6 that I would add, for sure. And if I wanted to go further out, I would think about Tulane and USF. If we're going coast to coast in these things. Mm-hmm. But that gets you into every time zone. It gets you into all these different things. If that's what you want for the new Pac-12 and are redefining who you are with, the West Coast, it gives you kind of nice, like a little L,
right?
Kind of, or back like an L through the country. And then you've got, a couple of offshoots there. But I think that would be good. You could be the Pac-14. I think you'd be the Pac-14 really, really easily. And then that gives you, if you even go further into my like New Orleans and Tampa, that gives you the markets of San Antonio, Dallas. You get Texas. Although television ratings wise in Texas, not that's more for recruiting and all that. But you still get some interest and some fan base that's going to be there. You get to play games in Texas. You'll get to play games in Florida. You'll get to play games in Louisiana where there's a bunch of talent. Tennessee has a lot. Like, Tennessee has more talent. Like, that's one of those things that it kind of gets lost in the shuffle a little bit. But the state of Tennessee, really, now it used to be kind of like Texas, a little bit Louisiana and Florida, and then it was like spotty. But now, because of the way the population has moved in the country over the last 25 years, the best places for high school recruiting are still always going to be California, Texas, Florida. But Louisiana, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, the Carolinas are all really starting to have good players. Arizona's starting to have some good players.
Yeah, they are.
Ohio and Pennsylvania, I know, like, before the people above the Mason-Dixon get upset. Yes, I understand they do too, but like really like the talent in the Southeast, into Texas and then California is if you just recruited there and didn't go anywhere else and took your scholarships from there every single year, you'd win most of the time. I mean, that's how it is. So if you're the Pac-12 and you can have a recruiting hold in California, in Texas, and in Florida, I think that's really good, even though you're not going to be obviously a power conference anymore. But the quickest way back to that, I think, is having recruiting footholds in places and schools that are growing.
My only pushback on that is I don't know if they are ready financially to push past the state of Texas. I don't know if they necessarily would want to jump into the Eastern time zone because a lot of the talk has already been the travel issues for the programs out west who are now playing having to go east, especially if you're Cal and Stanford. So I don't think Wazoo and them would want to necessarily take that step. I think you do try to get into Texas, though, because not only just the recruiting aspect of it, but with all the markets and being able to get into this state, along with because every other Power 4 conference already has a team in the state of Texas. And if you're able to do that for the Pac-12, I think that increases your footprint and helps you as a whole. But I don't necessarily think they're ready to go past that. I think the furthest they probably would look at is Tulane, and that might be pushing it. I could be totally wrong on that. But that's kind of how I see this. And at the same time, like if listening to the trailer there, I think he understands for the bigger picture, it would help his program, and it would be the best thing for UTSA. But also, like, kind of knowing him and knowing how much the humbleness and wanting to stay Texas through and through, it kind of reminds me of the situation that SFA found themselves in where they went for the same reason, for more money to a different conference. At the end of the day, it didn't align for them and what they stand for, and they ended up having to come back. So I don't know if UTSA, maybe that's more of a values thing, and me reading the room wrong. But I think overall it would be good for UTSA. I just don't know that personally a trailer would enjoy that. You know what I'm saying?
I think he'd be fun. Look, and I'm also not naive enough to think that he would see many years in the Pac-12.
Right, yeah.
I think if he continues that success at UTSA, which I know, like, right now they're in a bit of a two-game funk, but I just have the faith in him and that grid. Again, it's a growing school.
Correct.
It's a growing school. North Texas is a big school already. It's grown. Texas State's growing. I just think if you can have 3 teams in Texas and then guarantee that everybody's going to have a game or two in Texas every couple of years in that thing, that's going to be really good. Just like guaranteeing you'll have a game in California and you'll have a game in Florida. Like those kind of things are, I guess, good for the recruiting aspect of it. And they're not going to be toe-to-toe going against the Big 12 and SEC and schools like that when it comes to recruits. But the football is better here. The football is better in Florida. It's better. I believe this. I think the talent in Texas is probably permanently second. The coaching in or not permanently second, is fluid.
Fluctuates, yeah.
That fluctuates. The talent, like Florida, Texas, California, to me will always be the top 3 in whatever kind of like cyclical thing. But the coaching in Texas at the high school level,
can't touch it.
You can't. I don't think it'll ever be touched. Ever be touched. It's so well unified and organized. Everybody knows what they're doing for the most part. So much so that when I come across a high school coach that doesn't know what they're doing, I don't know if you feel this way, I'm shocked.
Pretty much, yeah.
Because
it's rare, too. You hardly come across it.
Yeah, most of the high school coaches I talk to, most of the reason they don't win is because of, like, you're limited to, I live in this place.
Yeah.
We're a 3A school. Like, I'm at the mercy of the breeding here.
Correct.
So, like, whoever, like, like you can point at Robinson, which is where you live.
Yep.
About 13, 12 years ago, had
an
absolutely badass team.
Yeah.
And it's just because the luck of the pregnancy draw that, 16 years or 17 years before that, a bunch of people had children that were all like kind of athletic, and they came up through the system together, and they were there in Robinson, and they were really good. Mm-hmm. But if you're not like, because it's a small community, you know, you're not just going to be like Allen or South Lake Carroll or one of these schools that's in a big city that you have this gigantic population draw to pull from. So no matter what, like even your down years are great by most team standards.
Right.
You're going to have this fluctuation, which is why there's a little less change in the smaller high schools, because people understand that. Like, all right, well, there's nobody tall in this class. Like, okay, yeah. we're kind of stuck. Like, we're a small class, and then one year you get, you know, 5 big linemen all together, and you're great. So that's where the coaching is so much better, and that's why I think getting into Texas, if you're the Pac-12, is a really good thing, because the high school coaches, and they appreciate recruiting, and the one thing that stuck, like I think about like movies that happened like in Texas high school football.
Right.
The one thing that stood out to me in Varsity Blues, now that I've been in this for so long, which that's like the least accurate one, but it's probably the most fun one.
Yeah, it's up there.
But is that Bud Kilmer wasn't trying to help his players get recruited. Now, that happens more often than you would think, but for the most part, the Texas High School Coaches Association is united in, if you're going to come into Texas and give my player a scholarship, I've got time for you.
Well, not just that, but they have it implemented where they have the straight line recruiting philosophy in Texas, whereas you don't necessarily have that in the first and foremost in other states, just because you don't have the unity across the board. A lot of the guys in other states, the coaches, they aren't full-time employees, but in Texas, it's a full-time position. It is a very well-paid position, and they do have the confidence and the ability to say, like, you're going to come through us for our recruits, and they have a more hands-on approach, and there's less minutia that goes into that process. So that's another benefit of getting into the state if you're the Pac-12.
Yeah, I think it's
recruited anyway. Look at Wazoo; they're damn quarterbacks from Texas.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, they're in here anyway. It gives them another thing. Like, it's just you know, hey, like, and plus they're going to play on some different nights, right?
Oh, yeah.
You know, you saw Kenny Dillingham play on Thursday last week, and
I think that's good for those programs.
And then you know what he did? He spent Friday and Saturday running around and talking to people.
He's probably going to do the same thing this weekend when they come to Tech. He's not going to leave Lubbock. He's going to be recruiting the hell out of Lubbock before he rolls back to Tempe.
Oh yeah. I'm sure.
He's going to, man.
I'm sure he will. It's not like he has to worry about like catching a Southwest flight.
No. He's good.
He's all right.
He's good.
He's not on Frontier for $74 one way.
Right.
Thinking like, man, what a rate. And then, you know, the plane like hums weirdly the whole time. Okay, moving on. Because I could honestly talk about that forever. I'm very intrigued. I'm excited for the Pac-12.
I'm glad it's back, man.
I'm glad that like those schools are making it work, and that there's a better thing now. On the other side of that, now when poaching happens, there's always someone who gets poached. Mm-hmm. Well, right now the poachee, the poached, not the poacher, is the Mountain West. They've already lost 4 schools. There's talk of Air Force going to the AAC, which I think is too good not to happen, because then that puts them in there with Army and Navy, and let's make this for the conference crown. You know, maybe not. I mean, but Air Force won the conference last year, or they were contending for the Mountain West last year. So the more I can see the service academies like play against each other and like add more stakes to that. You heard Rich Clark on the show last week talking about when they do play each other, it's we are respectful and love each other and like go for that. Although there is definite rivalry between the branches, like listen to them talk about each other. But when that whistle blows, it's on. Like, it is absolutely about pride for the branch of the service. So I'm all about that. So, but on a Wednesday, the additional members, I'm sorry, this is the second line, but there are schools that are interested in becoming Mountain West members. So that's potential good news for them. Now, New Mexico State would be one of those. They're interested in that. Sacramento State, which is currently an FCS school, but last week a group of local politicians and business leaders formed a committee called the SAC 12, which I don't think is a great name. But
no.
I don't think they workshopped it enough.
No, they did not.
Pac-12, Sacramento, Sac-12. We good? We good? Yeah, great. Let's get T-shirts.
Let's just run with that.
Let's run with it. To propel the school into the FBS. On Wednesday, it announced initial members had and a 5-point plan to bolster the athletic department, including building a new basketball arena that seats around 6,500 and a football stadium that seats 25,000, and securing a $5.25 million in necessary fees for jumping conferences. So the Mountain West is not dead yet, although losing 5 to 7 schools would maybe kill it. So we'll see what the future is for the Mountain West. I really like their conference commissioner, Gloria Navarez. Yep, she's been on the show multiple times, but she's very smart, very savvy. And I'm sure was, wondering if this would happen with Oregon State and Wazoo if they got to like, well, why don't you join this conference? And then they're like, well, but if we started a new conference, that would be better because then we can maybe pick who we want here as opposed to jumping in with you guys when there's maybe some people. This is Oregon State and Wazoo's chance to be the snobs.
Right.
Right?
The tables have turned.
Yeah, to be the ones that are like, well, New Mexico State, we appreciate your interest, but
I think that if the Mountain West starts having to look for teams, I think legitimately they should look first. And I know, because I honestly don't ever even hear about Sacramento State. This is the first time.
Well, it's an FCS school,
right?
So yeah, it's an FCS school.
But you hear about some FCS schools, and you probably do more so out there. But at the same time, I'm going to make a run at Montana State first.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a run at the Dakotas.
Yeah.
That's where I'm starting, and then I'm going to work my way to a Sacramento State. So there's better options out there. I think at the end of the day, while we see this and there's going to be some disruption, it is good for – there's going to be people who end up on the wrong side of it, but I think there's going to be more programs that ultimately benefit from this. You just got to pick the right ones to make your brand power still hold some accountability and credibility.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I think there's something there for them. Mm-hmm. All right. Next up, Garrett, let's get to this. I thought was just really funny. This is Marshall coach Charles Huff, a guy I really like. A coach I think is on the move up. Probably needs a couple of winning seasons, but they play Ohio State this week. And when asked about, how you compete with the school, with the portal and all that, this was his answer. And it is so no one, he didn't get a laugh on this. And I think it's because his delivery is so Stephen Wright dry that they didn't get it, but I thought this was pretty funny.
I have some of those guys from Ohio State too, so if they want to transfer on down, we've got a Tudor's Biscuit NIL, all you can eat. So if any of those guys that run really, really fast at Ohio State like Tudor's Biscuits, I promise you, all you can eat all day if you transfer here. So, but yeah.
There you go. So Tudor's Biscuit World, by the way, looks absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. So
and this is from clearly a biscuit boy. I'm a biscuit boy. So it looks. I mean, the first thing he says Tudor's Biscuits. While I'm listening to him talk about the rest of this, I'm just googling Tudor's Biscuits. Let's do this. Holy cow.
So what I thought was funny was I initially saw this and it was probably 15 minutes after that, the Sickos committee came out and they had the whole menu up where you could go through and scroll. So I found myself looking at what would be my top 3 or 4 biscuits I'd go to? But no, they got some pretty good stuff there. Yeah. I love this from Charles Huff. I think we've got to see his unique personality over the past couple seasons with the upset of Notre Dame and then in these types of situations. I think he's good for college football. I think he's going to have an opportunity within the next few years to make that step up and coach at the Power 4 level. But no, man, that's just fun. This is great for college football, and it's somebody who understands the moment, the situation, is just making the most and having fun with it. So I loved it.
Yeah, I did too. Next up. So Wake Forest, and that's really pissed off Lane Kiffin, as it should, because now Ole Miss has to go. They have to go find a game for next season. Wake Forest canceled their game for next year with Ole Miss. And like Lane Kiffin said, this is kind of an unwritten rule. You don't do this. Well, it turns out, according to Brett McMurphy, that Oregon State already on the schedule for them. And Oregon State's in a position right now where they can just be out there, floating around. Look, they might be able to take a game with Ole Miss, or Wazoo might, because they've got the scheduling openings, obviously, in this 2 years. Not sure if that's who Ole Miss wants to play, but they were playing out Ole Miss. Now they've got to, in a very short amount of time, go out and find someone who probably wants to get drilled by Ole Miss. Quite honestly, next year. And that's hard to do. Wake Forest obviously didn't want to do it a second time and made that decision before the game, before they'd played the game. But they've got Oregon State on the schedule for next season, and then the return trip is a few years down the line. So here's what I would compare this to. They knew that they were going to break up because they already had another girl.
Right.
I had a friend that used to do this all the time. Like, he would break up with a girl, and he would have like an internal clock of like, okay, 7 days from now, I'm gonna announce this new girlfriend, and then you'd be like, damn, dude, like, he's like, what? We're not together anymore, and you're like, yeah, but I feel like you had this in the barrel. Yeah. Like, this was not like, hey, what a crazy week. I met this girl and we're now in a serious relationship. But that's kind of like, they clearly were like, all right, let's make this plan. Oregon State called. Let's just pay the $1 million, get out. We don't want to do this again. Maybe this Oregon State thing will be better next season. So that's what they did.
I get it from a competitive balance situation. If you're Wake Forest,
I just don't like it.
Like, it's going to be a better game if you're playing Oregon State. But at the same time, like, with how everything is shifted now and it's magnified in these conference superiority and comparisons, you essentially just told everybody, hey, we can't compete with Ole Miss in the SEC, so we're just not going to do it. Like, why would you not just try? Why would you not, like, put an emphasis on this? You're going to make more money because regardless, Ole Miss and them are going to bring more fans than what you're going to have coming from the West Coast and Corvallis coming in. So I don't get it from that standpoint. It just kind of looks soft. It kind of is how we all were perceiving Lincoln Riley with the whole trying to get out of the LSU game. Like, if it's on your schedule, just play the damn thing. Like, don't do this. Get whooped. Let it be. Learn a lesson. Try to get better. Stay healthy, but don't go doing that. I just think it's a bad look overall, personally.
Yeah. So, Clint Moses says we're already on their schedule. Good research, boys. But this is just the story that we got from Brett McMurphy. So, but that's who's replacing, at least in their mind, Ole Miss, in Wake Forest's estimation. So, but Wake Forest bought out of that game, and now they have Oregon State. Next up, the BetVirginia.com has this out, and it is the odds on the next coach fired. And I, like an idiot, closed it, so I have to wait for you to put it up on the screen.
It's up.
There it is. And then I got to wait for the delay. Tick, tick, tick. Okay, number one. Not shockingly, Billy Napier.
No.
Number two is Sam Pittman. Also not shocking. Number three is Dave Aranda. And then you get it at, like, Mike Norvell's on the list. Mike Norvell's not getting fired. That's not. They just gave him a new gigantic contract last year. That's not going to happen. And let's see. Then Scott Satterfield in Cincinnati, also a thing I don't think is going to happen. I think.
How the hell is Satterfield behind Norvell? Like, that makes no sense.
It makes no sense for Bet Virginia. Brent Pry at Virginia Tech. No. I mean, he has, like, gotten out over his skis a little bit this year with a couple of comments. But then PJ Fleck at Minnesota, and then the field after that. Here's what I agree with. The top three on this list are probably the top three most likely to get fired. After that, everybody's just guessing because nobody's in that spot. Mm-hmm. And I think with each win, Dave Aranda is less likely to get fired. Billy Napier is definitely getting fired. And Sam Pittman, to be determined, but it doesn't look good.
Well, I mean, you kind of know what you got with Sam Pittman, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know what your ceiling is there, so that makes no sense to really keep him, especially if things don't get any better this season. I think Aranda honestly saves his job because I think Baylor makes a bowl game this year. Napier's gone. I think Norvell's fine. I could see Satterfield getting fired, maybe if not this season, after next season for sure, unless he can turn it around at Cincy, because the fans do not like him, and he really hasn't shown them a reason to be excited. I think Brent Pry probably gets another year, and if looking at PJ Fleck, like, why would he leave Minnesota? Like, they know the expectations. He's got an established culture there. I don't see a real rush to run him out of town.
Yeah, no. So, yeah, I don't – some of these – but I did think, you see that, betvirginia.com,
right.
The odds going Billy Napier. In fact, it's not even a good bet right now. It's not. You're not going to make a lot of money on it. It's going to happen. We've got an interview that we're doing tomorrow, and it's for tomorrow. We don't have time to run it today. So, but basically that SEC expert said – no way he's coming back. So we've got a couple of things we'll get to kind of in the midst of the rest of the show that I think are pretty funny. But next up, Sam Kahn of The Athletic. This is 365 Sports.
At the 40, at the 20.
It's Ram Power Days at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get the 2025 Ram 1500 Laramie Crew Cab with an incredible $15,000 off MSRP. Or drive away in a 2024 Ram 2500 Tradesman Crew Cab with $10,000 off MSRP. A great selection with over 350 new to choose from. But hurry, these deals won't last long. Hurry into Allen Samuels in Waco today. First responders get an extra $500 off.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Welcome back. Paul Catalina, Sam Kahn of The Athletic here with us. And Sam, Smokey and Craig have a high school game tonight. Tomorrow, Smokey is going to Nebraska for the first time ever as this huge Nebraska fan. So I'm solo for the next 2 days. So we've had a real risky business thing going on.
I feel like they leave you solo way more often than they should. I feel like it's been you and me for a few weeks now. What is this? Checking out, and I know, and I remember Craig saying a couple of weeks ago, if I heard him say correctly, this is my last year doing high school football. Like,
yeah,
man, it's they're mailing it in over there.
Yeah,
You're really
I know.
the one doing the real work here.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I'm doing the heavy lifting. Sam, I do have to ask you this. Did you see that Charles? I'm curious because you're more well-traveled when it comes to me into the different parts of the college football world. I didn't know what Tudor's Biscuits was until Charles Huff said anything about it. But now I feel like I got to go to Charleston, West Virginia and go to Tudor's Biscuits.
I did not know it either. So I've never been to Marshall. So that is an effective recruiting pitch if I've ever heard one. And honestly, every head college football coach should use their local dining establishment as a recruiting pitch. I remember, I think is it Catfish Hole in Fayetteville that that Brett Bielema used to use that. They used to use it for official visits. I would imagine maybe they still do this these days, but more and more programs should leverage and unapologetically broadcast their best eating establishments, because I think that factors more into a recruit's decision than maybe people would realize.
Yeah. And like, I know this, but I do think it should be like it's like a yearly article but it should be something. I think this is up. You and I could go on the road and do this very well. I think we
100%.
We have discerning taste enough to where we know and find out where could, like, just recruit it on the food, not the facilities.
That's right.
And, like, not anything else. Recruit it. Like, that's why, when people say, like, oh, this place is in this big city or that big city. Like, you know what? Like, I've been in some small towns that have way better food than big cities. So, otherwise, like, Tulane would be a juggernaut because they they just wouldn't have to pick one place. They're like, what is your thing? So.
Yeah. It's hey man, I'm all for anytime I go on a road trip, I'm looking on the map to see, or I'm texting people or calling people and being like, where do I need to eat?
Where do you think A&M's place is? That's always kind of like tripped me up because they've got some cool stuff, but they've never really had a thing that at least is not atmosphere over necessarily the quality of the food.
Well, they've been on the come up. Really, I feel like in the last 10 years, like Fuego is a great place to go because you've got great tacos. I'm a personal favorite chicken oil company. They got really good burgers there.
Yeah, I love
they
chicken
did
oil.
just close. They did just close Fargo's Barbecue, which makes me sad because Fargo's was a classic. And they had Rib Tip Tuesdays. They don't have that anymore, unfortunately. But they do have another really good barbecue joint that opened up in the last couple of years. I think it's called 1775.
Okay.
And that I've been there. That place is legit. So that's really good. They have done a really good job of becoming a better, having larger selection in College Station than just going to the chicken, which nothing against the chicken. Like, it's awesome to go to the chicken every time.
Absolutely.
But they've become a lot better and having a lot wider range of options now.
Okay, good deal. All right, let's dive into this week. When it comes to A&M, they play Bowling Green. I'm not really interested about that. I think we know what's going to happen against Bowling Green, but they have a quarterback situation now in College Station, and Marcel Reed was great against Florida. Connor Wegman didn't play well against Notre Dame, but that's Notre Dame's one of the better defenses in the country. First game of the season, his first game in 11 months and all of that. They actually have maybe a good problem at quarterback, right? Where they've got two guys that they really like, and I don't think they really sneeze at Jalen Henderson all that much if it had to get down to it. They actually have two players that they like, but what do you think is the future for that? Because both of them have different skill sets.
Yeah, and I think Connor Wegman is a tremendous talent. To me, in the opener against Notre Dame, he didn't look like himself to me. And now we're starting to learn that he's a little bit banged up and that he's got the AC joint sprain that they're working on. It makes a lot more sense to me now because he looked a little bit hesitant at times. His footwork wasn't all the way there. The ball wasn't coming out the way it usually does. And now it kind of makes sense as to why maybe that was, because he did not look like the confident Connor Wegman that I saw as a true freshman in his first start to get Ole Miss when he looked terrific. And then beating LSU that year. Then last year before the injury, he looked really, really good. I just hadn't seen that Connor Wegman yet. I'd love to see him 100% healthy. But on the flip side, I think Marcel Reed is a better fit schematically for what Colin Klein wants to do. And I think you saw that against Florida, the way they do some of the design quarterback runs, I think he's a more natural straight line runner than Connor Wegman. Wegman feels more to me like a scrambler who scrambles to throw. Not that he cannot run, he can, but it just felt more natural and fluid with Reed in the game, even though Reed hasn't had as much time working in this offense. So I think they're in a good spot. And if you're Mike Elko, you don't have to force anything. This does not have to be a narrative establishing decision here. You're in year one of a new program. You're in year one of the build. There's no reason to make a rash decision and say, this is our guy and this is what we're going to do. Feel it out from week to week. Let the play on the field do it speaking for itself. Let Connor Wegman heal up and be 100%. But I think if you go with Marcel Reed right now, when he's healthier, I think that's the smart way to go.
Yeah, I agree with you. Arch Manning has made his debut, and it was a splash, Sam. And he's going to have the next 2 games, I would think. I mean, there's no reason to rush Quinn Ewers back against Louisiana Monroe and then Mississippi State, especially since Arch has shown that he's ready to go. And look, in a normal situation, Quinn Ewers could have maybe even left after last year, although because there was a crowded quarterback class, he would have gotten maybe pushed out of the first round, but I don't think he would have fallen much further into the second. So Arch Manning could be starting this year in a different world, but Quinn Ewers back, and obviously he's better than he was a year ago, but still gets banged up, and he's missed a little time every single year. What did you think of Arch Manning, and how big is the hype train going to grow if he does, in fact, maybe play after the bye week as well?
Yeah, I think at this point, I think the hype train's already leaving the station at this point. And the thing that's interesting about it is that there's the outer noise that's going on, which is all of us talking about it. And then there's what's going on in Austin, which I don't think it's as big of a deal down there, just because I think Steve Sarkisian has done a masterful job of managing this situation, because there's a million ways this thing could have gone wrong. But he came out very forcefully, I think, right after Arch enrolled on campus, that after that first spring that Arch had, he said, Quinn is our starter. And coming into this year, Quinn is our starter. And by the way, Quinn has earned it. And you go look at what he did, going to beat Alabama on the road, taking them to the playoff, going to beat Michigan on the road this year. He has a resume that is really hard to knock. So I think when he comes back, the job is his. We can wax poetic about whatever Arch does against ULM or Mississippi State if he happens to start then, but none of that's going to change Quinn's status. Once Quinn's healthy, he's the guy. Now, Arch, when it's his turn and when he takes the reins for good, watch out, buddy, because he drives the ball so well down the field. You can tell that he gets the offense. He's comfortable. He looks so much more comfortable now than he did a year ago. I remember watching him in that spring game, and I thought to myself, he was swimming. Like, you could tell it was a little fast and it was a little overwhelming for him. Now it looks like he understands the offense. He knows what to do. He can make the reads and get through his progressions without a problem. He can make the adjustments on the fly. And, oh, by the way, the guy's got some wheels. I was really impressed. I knew he could run, but I didn't see 67-yard touchdown coming. So once he takes the reins for real after Quinn is done, whenever that is, the ceiling is limitless, in my opinion, for Arch Manning.
Yeah, so you wrote on the Longhorns this week and all the questions that they've already kind of answered, and then the ones still to be to be answered. Now, the biggest thing is that they probably likely won't get challenged until after that bye against Oklahoma. And then there's a chance they have 2 weeks of challenge, and then they have a couple weeks of not. They've benefited from the first year schedule that was nice. Like, I think that you look at them right now, there's 3 teams I see like giving them headaches, and 2 of them are Georgia and Oklahoma, and the other one would be A&M. And just because of what the emotions of that game are going to be back in College Station for the first time in 13 years. But all the rest of it, the way that they've looked, like even a bad day, they should be able to handle most of these teams. How much do you think they will get challenged throughout the year?
I think they will. OU is OU. The Red River Shootout, we know. I hate to say the cliche, throw the records out, but it truly is one of those games. And we've seen it play out plenty of times. Georgia's going to be a challenge, of course. A&M is going to be a challenge, I think, in large part because of, like you said, the atmosphere that you're walking into. The other tricky one that I would put down, not because I think the team is all that great, but because the situation, again, you talk about emotions and rivalries, is the game at Arkansas on November 16th. Last time they went to Fayetteville, they got hammered. Now, granted, that was a team that ended up going 5-7, so Texas was not nearly as good then as they are now. But the emotions for that game from that Arkansas fan base are going to be off the meter. I think Steve Sarkisian even said it himself at SEC Media Days. He said, I think there's probably some Arkansas fans who probably hate Texas more than they love their own team. And Sam Pittman was like, yeah, he's probably right about that. And so I think that one could be interesting. But beyond those games, I don't see, like, Florida, I don't think is going to be a challenge. Vanderbilt, I don't think it's going to be a challenge. Mississippi State right now really looks rough, so I don't expect they're going to be a challenge next week. Kentucky will be an interesting one because of just what we saw them do against Georgia. But Texas, I'm sure, will have a clunker at some point. We saw it last year against Houston. We saw it against K-State. They were able to win those clunkers. Now you're in a different conference with a higher level of line of scrimmage talent, a higher level of skill talent. So that essentially becomes the question for Texas. Can you win your clunkers in the SEC? Because that's going to ultimately determine whether you can win the SEC, whether you can make it to the college football playoff. But if they get through this first stretch here before Red River at 5-0, then I think you've bought yourself a little wiggle room.
Oh, for sure. And look, they don't have to go undefeated to make the playoff. Like this is a different era. So, but right now, to me, it looks like they're at least one of the favorites to be in that SEC title game, especially given the schedule that it's less difficult than Georgia, Alabama, Ole Miss, or Tennessee, who are all right there with them, in the SEC as well, up at the top. In the Big 12 this week, Oklahoma State and Utah. That game, I would expect it to be super physical and maybe a little bit more low scoring-ish or medium scoring, like kind of in the middle there. What does this game come down to? Because Oklahoma State's shown that they have some problems on defense, but offensively they have maybe some more explosive weapons on the outside than Utah does. But Utah's probably a little bit better at quarterback. And both these guys are 48 years old, too.
Well, assuming he plays, by the way, because I think there's still some ambiguity about whether Cam Rising is going to play. We saw the line move overnight pretty significantly. Mm-hmm. So that makes me wonder a little bit. I think most of us have assumed that Cam Rising is going to play. If he doesn't, though, I still buy into Utah being able to stay in that game because of how good they are defensively. They're one of the best in the country in third downs. They're one of the best defenses in multiple metrics. So I think they'll stay in that game. And Oklahoma State hasn't really, I don't feel like they've hit their stride running the ball yet. Like Ollie Gordon hasn't had that explosion that we saw last year. So this is a fascinating game to kind of find out. Like, is Oklahoma State, have they been vanilla? Is it been by design that it's been that way? Or are they going to finally unleash and unlock? Or is there an issue that we're going to see surface against Utah? I agree with you. I think this is a low scoring affair. This is going to be one of those rock fights, and I'm sure Kyle Whittingham is going to love that because his team is built for winning those types of football games. But this will be really good. And again, not a be-all, end-all, certainly a game that someone gets the inside track early on in this Big 12 race, but there will be a chance to come back for whichever of these teams does not win it.
What am I supposed to make of Texas Tech after the win over North Texas last week?
That's a great question because I thought they looked awful through 2 weeks, of course, losing against Wazoo and then barely beating Abilene Christian. And then you saw how they looked last week, and they looked fast, and they looked physical. They looked disciplined. And that was a really good palate cleanser, so to speak. And they got some good fortune. A couple of the Chandler Morris picks were balls that went off receivers' hands into the air, and Texas Tech was able to snag those. Those are not all those are not all just, hey, Texas Tech forced a turnover. Some of that's good fortune, but they dominated that game pretty much from start to finish. So if you're Joey McGuire, if you're Texas Tech, you feel really good about that. Now you got to carry that over to a really scrappy Arizona State team that I know a lot of people are going to overlook that win against Texas State, but I thought that was a really quality win because you knew everybody in San Marcos was charged up for it. They had gotten out to a lead. And I thought the discipline that they showed, the poise that they showed to kind of come back and pull that out in crunch time was really impressive. And this is just going to be a fun one to watch. I think these are two teams that have not played very often. You think about, I think the last time they played was 2016, 2017, and the scores were like 68-55 and 52-48 or something like that. It's not going to be quite like that because I think both these defenses are a lot better, but I think this has the potential to be really fun because you've got two young coaches in Kenny Dillingham, Joey McGuire. You've got two really good running backs in Taj Brooks and Cam Scatteraboo. And you've got two really programs that are trying to up in the hierarchy of the league, I think, and trying to establish themselves in this new Big 12. So it's going to be fascinating. I kind of wish it was a night kick in Lubbock because I think that would make it a little more interesting. But this will be a definite barometer for both of these programs to give us a sense for where's Arizona State, how for real are they at 3-0, and Texas Tech was last week just a fluke, and what we saw the first 2 weeks is really the truth, or are they back on track now and they're going to move forward and be successful?
Yeah, I'm so curious about where they are right now and who they really are. The other who are you game is Kansas and West Virginia, because these teams have wildly disappointed their fans for the first 3 weeks.
Anxiety bowl. Can you say a ton of angst in this game because you've got Neil Brown, who shut everybody up on the hot seat talk last year and win 9 games. And, okay, you lost the opener against Penn State. I feel like, okay, you can probably chalk that one up, whatever. This one against Pitt, the backyard brawl, and you lose it in the fashion in which they lost it. That's a heartbreaker. And now all of a sudden you've got the fan base talking about, you got the narrative started again about his job security, fair or unfair. That's just kind of how it's going. So this is a must win for West Virginia that way. On the other side, you got Kansas, who thought they were going to be in the Big 12 title game hunt. Now sitting here at 1-2, Jalen Daniels has thrown 6 picks, thrown 5 in the last 2 weeks of 2 games. They should have beat Illinois. UNLV, I don't know that I would say they should have, but you had that one at home, and that was one that if you were a Big 12 title contender, you should win that game. But they've kind of gotten outplayed the last couple of weeks, and you've got to be able to take care of the football. So they're on the brink of losing 3 straight. So this is a must win for both of these programs. Both of these programs had some kind of vision of being in the conversation in November. Buddy, if you're going to be in that conversation, you have to win this one if you're those programs. So this is going to be fascinating because I think both of them need it in a big way. I think West Virginia and Neil Brown probably need a little more than Kansas does. But again, if Kansas loses 3 straight, gosh, that really kills the mood after all preseason hype that we thought they were going to be in the mix here.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, a couple more I got to ask you about. TCU and SMU. Does TCU's disappointing loss maybe get them twice, or is SMU, because of the quarterback change and all that, maybe not ready to deal with what is going to be a pretty decent offensive onslaught from the Horned Frogs?
Yeah, I'm still wondering if SMU is going to be able to score enough to keep up with TCU. TCU should not have lost that game last week to UCF, and that one's going to sting for a while. They have got to bounce back in this one, I think, just for angst, for anxiety's sake. In their fan base, because I think if you lose this one, then I think the Horned Frog fans I think it's really going to get a little uneasy for them. I look at the skill talent over there. I look at what I saw from them last week for most of the game, and I see a team that I think is just more explosive than SMU is right now. I do like the change to Kevin Jennings just because I don't think SMU's offensive line is in a place to protect Preston Stone. For any of you guys who watched the BYU game, they were teeing off on him, and he had no time to get rid of the ball. They've lost a couple linemen in the portal this offseason. So until you can get pass protection shored up, I think Jennings, who is the more mobile guy, is the way to go, and they move the ball better with him in the game, and the pass rush seemed to recede a little bit. That said, I think they have a ton of talent. I love what they did in terms of adding offensive skill talent in these last 2 off seasons at SMU. So I'm not saying they don't have the firepower to keep up, but I just don't think with Jennings coming in and making the first start, I don't think it's all together there yet enough far along to beat TCU.
All right, and this will transition nicely into Matt McChesney, who's coming up right after you. Baylor at Colorado. This is the first time these teams have played in a long time since Colorado left the league. And it's kind of a different day than when Colorado left the league before, and where Baylor has been since then. Colorado last week improved on defense, but Colorado State's not very good. So it's hard to get a read on who Colorado, if they are in fact improving or if it's just a benefit of playing Colorado State. Baylor with Sawyer Robertson, who I would bet probably plays this week. If DeQuan Finn's in a sling last week, you at least, especially now, you have a reason and an excuse to wait on DeQuan Finn and not rush him back. But he was really good against Air Force, but it was Air Force. So what are we to make of this game? I think Baylor wins it just because they can run the ball, but I really don't know.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. Give DeQuan Finn the extra time to get healed up. Sawyer Robertson look good. And honestly, the thing I'm really fascinated to see in this game is how Baylor looks defensively against all that skill talent that Colorado has. Dave Aranda being the guy calling the defense now has seemingly made a difference. You look through 3 weeks, okay, you can critique the schedule a little bit, but even Utah, and I know Cam Rising went out in that game, but they held them to less than 300 yards. They've not allowed 300 yards to a single opponent yet. I'm kind of liking the Dave Aranda being the defensive coordinator thing so far. I think it's working out. Now, can you put pressure, take advantage of that Colorado front? Colorado State could not, but Colorado State is nowhere near as talented as Baylor is defensively. So this is a game, to me, where if you can light up Shedeur a little bit, then maybe you can relieve some of the pressure. Because if you give him time, and I know Dave Aranda's covered this talking to the media this week, you give Shedeur time, he'll kill you because they have got tremendous skill on the perimeter. For Colorado, I don't buy a ton into that game last week just because of the level of opponent. I don't think Colorado State is really that good. And I know they were fired up because of the trash talk, but that was a really necessary game for them because they really got their rears kicked in against Nebraska. They needed that one. And I think if we're going to take Colorado seriously in any way this year, the Big 12, I think this is one that they probably should win.
This is like a directional game for either one of them. Like if you win, you're probably on the up. If you lose, it's going to be really hard to find your way out of the hole.
100%. Yeah. Same thing with Baylor. Like Baylor, if you're trying to get to the postseason, you're trying to show real progress, this is a game you've got to go and win if you're Dave Aranda.
Absolutely. Sam Kahn, The Athletic. Sam, we'll talk to you next week. Hopefully everyone's here and it's not just you and me, but if it is, I'm fine with that.
That's okay. I appreciate hanging out with you, Paul. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. Sam Kahn of The Athletic, one of my favorites to have on the show. Absolutely. Great minds think alike. I think, we could be we have a buddy cop show, no problem.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I think it'd do well.
Yeah. No. I think we can have a list of people I can have a buddy cop show with. I'm telling Kenneth Davis.
Kenneth
Davis and me.
The top.
But buddy, you'll see him tomorrow. Buddy cop show. It needs to happen. Two guys from two different places in the country,
unite
all of a sudden, like Starsky and Hutch.
A little bit.
I mean, there was a little bit of differences, but ultimately, they had each other's back. So, next up, Matt McChesney. We're going to talk Colorado and Baylor with one of the most intense Buffaloes there is. Matt McChesney, he is coming up next. This is 365 Sports.
It's time to score big savings at the Kickoff to Savings event on GMC trucks at Richard Carr GMC. Take the winning drive with the Texas Truck MVP. GMC Sierra is the best truck on the road. Save $9,000 on 2024 GMC Sierra SLT models in stock with 2010 or newer approved trade-in. Plus, qualified buyers get 1.9% financing and no payments for 90 days. See dealer for details. Save big and score your deal at the Kickoff to Savings event at Richard Carr GMC.
Richard Carr, they have the truck for you.
Edward Jones Financial Advisors Josh Satterfield and John Maddox understand these are difficult and changing times we live in, but they know how important your financial investments are to you. So is your financial advisor staying in touch with you and helping you navigate today's financial climate? When you invest with Edward Jones Financial Advisors Josh Satterfield, John Maddox, and Sean Carter, they will provide their time and experience to help you reach your goals. And like coaching athletes, investing money is about time, patience, and encouragement. Josh Satterfield and Sean Carter on Wycon Road off Bagby, and John Maddox on Sapphire Boulevard in Hewitt. Proud sponsors of Midway Panthers football. Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Membership SIPC.
El Conquistador restaurants are a very proud sponsor of the Midway Panthers, have been owned and operated by the Gonzalez family since 1969. El Conquistador is recognized annually as a local favorite with their fast and friendly service. Dine in or order takeout and enjoy your favorite Tex-Mex items as well as several traditional menu items. Catering is also available with 3 locations to serve you: Waco, Belmead, and Hillsboro. The Gonzalez family thanks you in Waco and the surrounding area for your continued support of 55 years in business. Go Panthers!
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. This segment is brought to you by Michelob Ultra. It's only worth it if you enjoy it. Containing only 95 calories and 2.6 carbs.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. Matt McChesney joins us again. I said this in the wrap of the last segment. You're one of the most intense Colorado Buffaloes that's out there. You are. I know that you, as a former player and a person who loves the program, suffered through a lot of the dark times because you know what the program can be. Now, the last couple years have been exciting in some regards, and then a struggle a little bit because they haven't gotten there yet. Where do you see the program right now and what they need to do to get back to the place where they are competing for this conference title?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me back on. Every time I come on this show, I love it. You guys are awesome. Look, you're right. It has been hard. I mean, I'm going on 43 years old here in November, and I was a captain on the team that won a bowl game last in Boulder in 2004. So it's been a rough 20 years, and and not talking crap, but I know that the Baylor faithful they feel that they had a long stretch where they had a rough couple of decades as well. So when you can pull out of that, even if it is only a 3-win increase, but still the national attention and everything that comes with Coach Prime, it's been awesome, man. I mean, we're just riding the wave here in Boulder. So I prefer it when everyone hates us. I prefer it when everyone's got, a little bit of bad blood towards us. And back in the day, it used to be because we were whipping people's asses, but now it's because of a lot of different reasons. So a little disdain and a little tension in college football is a good thing. So, if people are usually, a little venomous towards you or your university, that's probably because you're doing something right. So I think that the entire experiment up to this point has worked. They've got incredible talent on that team this year, and I think it's a much different team than it was last year. So I'm really looking forward to Saturday, bro. I can't wait.
They've got to get better up front, which I know is the issue that is near and dear to your heart as a former lineman and someone who did that. Defensively, it looks like they've made some steps. Offensively, they still can't run the ball. What do you see changing, and what have you seen change that they're going to have to run the ball to win the games of the Big 12, but stopping the run especially so that they can get the ball back in Shedeur Sanders' hands and spread it around to those playmakers?
Well, look, I think that just talking about the offense first, in the first 2 games of the season, North Dakota State, I'm not going to say they didn't try and run the ball. They did to a point. They just had such a massive advantage with our skill players and throwing the football down the field and being the first game of the year and never playing each other and having no history and really no film. It's very similar to TCU last year where guys are just running wide open. So you had to take advantage of that. Nebraska was humbling. I was at the game. My son went as a recruit of the Huskers, which had my head spinning, but it was pretty cool. Man, it was a crazy afternoon. I'm really good friends with Matt Rule and Coach Knighton and everybody. But when I was standing on the Nebraska sideline and I'm like, Nick's getting quartered by him, I'm sitting there like, oh, man, my God, my heart's about to explode. But it was a humbling experience, and it was needed. It forced the coaching staff and Coach Prime primarily to go in and really take control of what they wanted to do. And then last week they went 19 carries for 109 yards and 5.7 yards a clip. And I understand that it's against CSU, but I also heard everyone picking CSU last week before CU dismantled them. So, you know, I think that they got a lot better last week, but look, this is a different animal. Your defensive line is real. Your defense is fast. Arguably, you guys should have won that game in Salt Lake City. I mean, I thought you outplayed Utah all day. So this is no cakewalk up front, and it's going to be a good test. I don't know if you guys are as good as Nebraska is up front. That is one mean group. But, you know, it's going to be a dogfight all night in the trench on offense. So I love the improvement they made, but they have to stay hungry and humble, play 5 as 1. And then Coach Lodeholt, who is a student and an ex-player of Coach Bill Beatonbaugh at Oklahoma, who, in my opinion, is the best offensive line coach maybe in the history of college football. That guy gets the most out of his guys, and you can see a lot of the traits that he teaches his Oklahoma guys, because we've sent kids there in the past, and Josh Bates, their starting center, is one of our guys from 6-0 Football Academy, and it's, we're constantly in communication. They've got a couple of recruits out there in Norman, and when you talk to Bill, that's exactly what Coach Lodeholt sounds like in Boulder now, talking to him. So they're trying to implement that scheme, and Oklahoma's ran it for a long time successfully, and I think they can do it in Boulder. On the other side of the ball, so I'm very, very picky about the position. I like Cooks, our big 3 technique. I really wanted to start taking inside moves and hitting quarterbacks in the teeth and TFLing and things of that nature, because I think that if you're going to play an over-under attack front like they're doing, and Coach Livingston has instituted since he's come in from Cincinnati, which that might be the hire of the year, honestly, if it continues to go the way they're going, because that defense is much improved, really fast. The secondary is unbelievable, littered with first-round picks. Bentley and Hill Green, I call them the law firm at linebacker, they were amazing last week, and they played really well in Nebraska as well. So, I'm really looking at the 3 technique to uphold his end of the deal there in Shane Cooks. And then, look, we had a big nose tackle last week. I think his name is Barnes. He absolutely dominated at the point of attack. 6'5", 320-pound kid who really, really showed that he deserves more playing time and really dominated. So, I think that we can put the non-conference to bed for both teams. This is a huge test for both groups up front. So I think that the illusion is that they can't run the ball. I saw them really take steps last week to improve it. And that's all you can really ask for. So hopefully, with the fact that it's going to be, a torrential downpour Saturday night and probably 40 degrees and cold and ready to go, they're going to have to run the ball on Saturday night in those kind of conditions to win that football game.
Shedeur Sanders he's a polarizing figure for a lot of fans. I think a lot of people don't like him because, he's brash and all that, but you can't deny his talent. I love watching him play. I'm very concerned about his health this year, just because he gets lit up like he gets hit against like he did against Nebraska over and over again. He's not going to be able to finish the season. So, but I guess the other thing is he's clearly kind of stressed about the questions that kind of come his way and the way that Nebraska game ended. Do you think he just, if he can kind of clear his head and mature a little bit faster mentally, that this team can maybe overcome some of that too? Because it looked like that Nebraska game really got to him on a different level.
Well, look, I think the Nebraska game was a humbling experience for everybody associated, myself included. We did the same thing to them in Boulder last year and made them look at themselves hard and say, we got to find a quarterback, and they went and found one. So that's what your rival does. Your rival usually makes you look at yourself in the mirror real hard and go, man, we got to change some stuff. So I don't really care that he was frustrated. This is what I need. I need everybody else that plays at the University of Colorado to up their game and start playing at the level that 2 and 12 play at. Yeah. And I've said this a million times, and on the North Dakota State broadcast with Mark Jones, one of the broadcasters quoted me off of my podcast. I do 0 to 60 on the Believe Network, and obviously, it's on YouTube, so go check it out. But I always say that when Shedeur doesn't have to do everything, he can do anything. And if he just gets support from the rest of his football team and the coaches, that he literally will chop up anybody you put in front of him. I think he's that talented. I like his swagger. I like his cockiness. Now, if I was playing against him, would I like it? Probably not. I would probably use that as ammo to motivate my team and my fan base. But being the quarterback for the Colorado Buffaloes and bleeding black and gold, I love the swag. I love the cockiness. I love that he's not shaking people's hands after they insult him. And everybody forgets what CSU said. All they see is him not shaking hands. I don't really have a problem with him using the media to send a message. That's what they do at CU. They play the media like a damn fiddle, and it starts at the top with Coach Prime. I want my quarterback to think he's the baddest man that's ever walked the earth, and I want everybody else to try and play at that standard so we can win football games. The worst thing that we can possibly do in Boulder is play feelings ball again. We did that for 20 years, and it didn't work. So everybody's feelings and all the oh, I don't like him. You'd love him if he was your quarterback, because he's one tough SOB. I will say this. Every time I see this man get hit and cheap shotted, and especially in CSU does it to him constantly, but they don't have to play them anymore. But every time you hit North Dakota State hit him, he went for 500 yards and 4 touchdowns afterwards. Nebraska rattled him. That's no lie. But he did play better in the second half, and they learned a lot from that outing. And CSU cheap shotted him again the other night with a blatant targeting call that wasn't called. And after that, he just locked in, and he threw 4 touchdowns again and went to work. So I think that he's rather tough and rather mentally more mature than a lot of people that are around him. And in that case, it sometimes sounds like he's talking down to people. But look, man, a leader is not necessarily your friend. So Shedeur Sanders demands the respect of his teammates and demands that they do things at a high level, just like he is accustomed to doing and also expected to do. So I think that now in Boulder, they really have the right combination of dudes around him that are not only super talented, but that are also buying into the fact that it's okay to be led by a real alpha when that guy's really in the room. So I think Shedeur is on a pathway to really being not only a great college quarterback for the rest of this year, but a 10, 12-year pro wherever he goes.
Have you ever played with or against anybody on the level of Travis Hunter?
No one has. Yeah. Ever. There's never been ever in the history of football a Travis Hunter. It is, I'm not saying, look, I disagree with the narrative that he has to pick one. I think that he should run the tread off these tires until the wheels fall off, bro. And if it's 5 games from now, knock on wood, then that's what we get. If it's 15 years from now and he's going into the Hall of Fame as a 2-way 20-time All-Pro because he's a 10-time All-Pro receiver and a 10-time All-Pro DB. I mean, I'm not crazy for thinking this. This is what I'm hearing Champ Bailey and Steve Atwater and Nick Ferguson, all these guys in Denver that play for the Broncos, and I talked to all the DBs and then all the receivers I talked to. They've never seen anything like it before, and neither have I. So Travis is a unicorn, and not only that, you know, I don't know if you guys watched the game last week, but the most telling play to me was not the pick or all the touchdowns and the swag. It was at the end of the game when the game's over and CSU breaks a run, and it's like their biggest run of the night, and this dude's going to the end zone, and 12 puts on the gas and runs him down 60 yards and tries to punch the ball out. I mean, if the best player in the world, a guy who, look, if CU does their end of the deal and they win 8-9 games, Travis Hunter's winning the Heisman. And I don't want to hear any junk. Like, he is winning the Heisman Trophy if they win 8 or 9 games and they're in national bowl games, and God forbid they win the playoff or get in the playoff. He is winning the Heisman. So he runs this dude down and like falls on his shoulder, and I'm panicking because I'm like, God, please don't break your collarbone, because he's still maturing into. Imagine what he's going to look like at 25 in the NFL with like an open-minded head coach. So I was a little, afraid of him getting hurt there, but then popped up and just started talking to the media and then looking at his stat line, the effort he put in. Can you imagine, as a player and as a coach? I walked in on Sunday morning, at the gym, and we've got 40 kids in there doing yoga, and I put the play up in the film room, and I was just like, watch. This is what's expected. If the best player in the world plays this hard, how can you ever look at yourself in the mirror and not chase the ball or run hard or play hard? It just sets a standard that everybody else has to match. And that's the thing. The same thing I said with Shador, I say with Travis. Last year, the team tried with effort and want to match those two. This year, the team actually has the pieces to do so, and I feel like they're all playing fast, they're all playing hard, and they're all trying to change this narrative that it's just a two-man show in Coach Prime and it's all a gimmick. I just think people that continue to think like that are in for a very rude awakening when they play a real football team in Boulder.
Oh, there's – I think about like all these, well, is he a wide receiver? Is he a cornerback? Well, he is what he is until somebody proves that he's not one of those things in the league, right? So if he one position turns out he's not as good in the NFL and he's better and he's not effective at one, then they'll move him. But how stupid would the Angels or Dodgers have felt? And the Dodgers haven't even gotten to pitch Ohtani yet. But if they're like, no, you're only going to do this.
You're only batting.
You're only batting. Okay, well, you just happen to have a unicorn. Why are you not using their magical powers? Like, that's what you should do until they lose those magical powers. Until they lose them or somebody proves that they're not effective, then do everything, right? I mean, that to me, and don't cheat the fans out of it either. Like, we're getting to see some of the greatest, like Ohtani and now Travis Hunter, potentially some of the greatest, other than his coach, Deion Sanders and Bo Jackson, I don't think there's anybody I've seen like Travis Hunter, like athletically on that level. And Bo, I mean, if you would have maybe paid Bo at linebacker, he probably would have been good. Like, let's face it, he probably would have
crushed everyone, yes.
He would have crushed everybody. But he didn't do that. Like, this is something that no coach has had the stones to do in a very long time. Not even with the guy who won the Heisman, Charles Woodson. He was a specialty wide receiver. Like, he had a package.
Yeah, he went in for rehearsals and stuff. Exactly.
Yeah.
Look, I think that the ability for Coach Prime to like morph into, look at what I have, instead of I'm going to play with the fear that he's going to get hurt or beat, as opposed to, man, imagine what could happen if we just take the reins off. Like, my father used to always say this, and it's a great line by Chuck Daly. You don't saddle a Mustang, bro. You just let him run. You just see, sometimes you're not coaching Travis Hunter, like Coach Prime is going to give him some tips, and it tips, but then he's going to be like, okay, everyone back up and let 12 go play football. So like on Travis's podcast, he said that Coach Prime walked up to him right before he had that great pick and return and was like, look, really focus on your pedal and your drop step here and your hips. They're going to run the crossing route at some point, and you can just go underneath it and play it. Very next play, he focuses on his drop step, opens his hips, and undercuts and picks it off. So they're on the same wavelength mentally. So I just hope that Travis goes to a situation in the NFL where he's got a really, really, really open-minded head coach that will allow him to do what he's capable of doing. Like if he goes to play for Sean Payton, he may just be returning kicks for all we know. So it's very important that he goes to the right place in the NFL that's going to allow him to maximize what he is.
Yeah. Mike McDaniel, that's your guy. Like, I would love to see it. But, you know what?
Yeah, if he survives Miami, we'll see.
Yeah. Sean McVay, another one.
Oh, incredible. Can you imagine Travis Hunter with Kyle Shanahan?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Oh, my God. Or how about, I hate to say this because I'm in Broncos country, but can you imagine Andy Reid with Travis Hunter?
Oh, yeah. No, thankfully they'll be in the 30s when they pick, so we don't have to deal with that.
He might be worth trading and leveraging. You're getting 2 players for 1, right?
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you leverage your draft to try and get the best corner and the best receiver in the draft?
Especially if you're close, right? If you're close,
100%. Yeah.
If you're close, just go do it. Just go do it. I know Jerry Jones would love to have him, but it's not. We're not that lucky.
I really think though. I really think before we get going here, I really think that there's a world, even though Dak just got paid all that money. And I don't know if he has a no trade clause or not, but I could see a situation where they would trade Dak and the first rounder to move up to number 1 and take Shador.
I know he loves Dion. So
just saying.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Matt, I'll always love having you on. Enjoy the game this week. We've got Smokey and Craig are actually on their way after their high school game tonight. They're going to Nebraska and Illinois. Smokey is a huge Nebraska fan. You just got to be there and experience that. Let me ask you,
bro.
Last thing. It was an unbelievable atmosphere and back to what it probably needs to be and used to be. But that's Colorado's probably biggest rival from the old days, right?
Facts.
The one you hated the most. But when your son's getting recruited there and they've got coaches that, Matt Rule, good friend of ours too. As a matter of fact, that's who set all this up for him. So what's your thoughts when your son, your pride and joy, your own flesh and blood is like, man, I got to go look at this Nebraska thing.
That pride, bro. Like you said, hate. I say respect. I hate Colorado. Okay. I hate Colorado State. I respect the University of Nebraska so much. Like the reason I went to CU was to try and turn the tide in that rivalry, and I was there from 2000 to 2004, and I beat them 3 times in 5 years, and in 2004 we actually ended their consecutive bowl streak, winning in Lincoln. And that was a crazy atmosphere that day. I thought I'd seen, I went back there in 2008 and it was cool. Or in 2010, one of the two. And it was cool to just be a fan and watch. But I haven't been back there in years. And I'm telling you, man, I love Folsom. Don't get me wrong. It's badass. But Memorial's twice the size. And I was standing on the sideline. And I was absolutely blown away. I was like, holy God in heaven, this is ridiculous. So the Tom Osborne Center that they just built is incredible. I mean, all the history and just walking through it, the way they treated all the recruits. And Matt Rule, Coach Rule is the shit. He is the man. And I really think that he is going to turn that place into an absolute powerhouse. I wouldn't be surprised if Nebraska wins a national title with Matt Rule. That's the way they got that place rolling. So, look, if Nebraska and CU my son just got invited to Alabama and Coach Kaplick down there. So if everybody wants to get into a bidding war, that NIL money sure would look good in Nick's account.
There you go.
You guys pay players, so hey, we can talk in Waco too.
Look, hey, welcome anytime. I'll give you the real tour. They're gonna give you the whole thing. I'll give you the real tour. You guys,
all right, man.
Get a
I'll take you up
here
on that for sure.
All right, Matt McChesney, go to find his podcast there on the Believe Network. He's great. We love having him on. Enjoy the game this week, Matt. We'll talk to you soon.
Amen, brother. Go Buffs.
All right, there we go. Golly. That is solid gold segment every time. Solid gold segment.
Every time.
Every single time. Hits it out of the park. Absolutely every single time. Next up, ESPN's Adam Rittenberg. He's going to talk about all the We'll talk all the crazy things in college football with Adam. Then at 5 o'clock, we've got David Teal of the Times-Dispatch, and then Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com. That's all coming up. This is 365 Sports.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental. Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8-year-old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Pioneer Steel and Pipe opened their doors in 1943, and they have never wavered with their focus on great product and customer service, relationships with a handshake, making sure you, the customer, is satisfied. Their new facility is now twice the size, allowing new inventory, higher quantities, and in a much more organized fashion. In addition to the long lengths in tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat, Pioneer Steel and Pipe now offers several shorter, more convenient lengths of material already cut. Their 2,500 square foot showroom has over 1,000 new products in stock, new welding supplies, hardware, quickcrete, and do-it-yourself components for any project, whether you are a professional contractor or weekend warrior. The new facility is designed to make your loading experience faster and more efficient with easy drive lanes around the building and much more room to get your trailer loaded. Our location may have changed, but our values haven't, and our relationship with customers goes much farther than just business. Pioneer Steel and Pipe on Loop 340 and Highway 6 and just east of I-35 in Waco.
Some say a dog is a man's best friend. But I tell you what, boys, you better think again. 'Cause there ain't nothing better than some cows, pigs, and turkeys too. I love to cover them in sauce down at Rudy's Barbecue.
Bring all your friends to Rudy's for some tasty oak smoke barbecue.
Next in line.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoke, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoke.
Welcome back. Just Paul today. The Smokes have a high school game tonight, and then they're going to Nebraska, Illinois. Tomorrow, we're joined by Adam Rittenberg of ESPN.com. And Adam, there are always week to week. I want to talk about actual games in the second part of the segment. But first off, when it comes to the realignment shakeups of the world, we've got the Pac-12 that is expanding and adding teams, and that's very interesting. And then the potential of Florida State and Clemson and the ACC to maybe reach some sort of a resolution to stay together. Let's start with the ACC and their malcontents. How do you feel that is going to go, and do you think that they can work something out that benefits all parties at least a little bit?
I think they can. I think part of it's just the reality of being in this legal dispute and maybe not having as much leverage as you thought. I think if this agreement is reached and it kind of takes the ACC out of the courtroom and brings them back together, it'll be viewed very much as a win for the ACC, the existing ACC, not necessarily Florida State and Clemson. But again, this is the thing about realignment, is that the market tells you how viable it is, and the courtrooms tell you how viable it is in some of these cases, with the grant of rights being so strong as it is in the ACC. And my read of this is it's a bit of a reality check, perhaps, for Florida State and maybe Clemson to realize that at least for now their best bet might be to remain in the ACC. But it's still an early discussion, very much at the presidential level. I don't think it's anything that I think that the way that things have been going with so much tension in the conference, it makes sense that they tried to find an alternative around the situation.
There is a very real scenario where they both get a win, like if they in court, where the ACC gets all this money and these exit fees and Florida State and Clemson can leave, but then the ACC, in spite of having all this money, still falls apart, and then Clemson and Florida State wind up not in the situation they exactly had planned out for themselves. So to me, the more certainty is to come back together and try to make it better for as long as you can stay together, and then see what happens in a few years.
Right. Yeah. I think I think for sure is that the landscape will be different than it is right now in a few years. And this is an agreement that would give Florida State and Clemson with the television ratings that they generate, and being the biggest brands in the conference, and maybe that would be looked at as a win. But again, Greg Sankey, who the commissioner of the SEC, made it very, very clear, I thought, that the SEC is not interested in Florida State at this time, and the Big Ten seems to be very happy with where it is, and again, was somewhat forced into the latest round of expansion. So again, that's what the market is telling you, and maybe that's saying, hey, at this point, try to work something out with your existing conference and your members. Try to get a little bit more money, and then, like you said, reassess in a couple of years.
To the Pac-12, and they're now welcoming 4 teams from the Mountain West. And where do you think they should reasonably head next? Jeff Traylor mentioned last night that very real discussions are going on between the administration at UTSA and seeing the Pac's interest there. What do you think is the best move now that they've kind of solidified the West Coast a little bit?
Right, yeah. I think it makes a lot of sense to look at a school like UTSA or to look at Memphis, which has been a school that's been discussed before for a league like the Big 12, and evaluate, where do they want to be? Because right now they have a presence, like you said, in the West Coast, in that mountain region, in the Pacific Northwest, with schools like Washington State, Oregon State, and Boise State. But, it's still not the most populated area. It's still not an area that's necessarily going to bring you, tremendous media rights value. So where else, and what are those teams that could do that? I think that's where the analysis is happening, and I think UTSA certainly could fit that description. Memphis could fit that description. Tulane perhaps could fit that description. And it's also going to be interesting to see what the AAC can do to sort of fight back and say, hey, you're better off remaining here in a league that is in a lot more major markets. It's a lot more geographic, and Jeff even noted that in his comments last night. So I think that push-pull between the AAC and this, revitalized, energized Pac-12 is going to be really interesting to see how that plays out.
All right, let's talk about actual real football and not the business of the sport now. Texas is number 1 in the country. They have yet to be tested even by the defending national champions. Even though they lost some things on defense last year with Sweat and Murphy and Jalen Ford up the middle, they're still, really good on that side. Again, haven't been tested, but still appear to be very capable. Do you see them now as the team to beat in the country?
Wow, that's a big statement, but it's not off base. I just got off the phone with an assistant from an SEC team that a lot of people have said that about as well. And this person is very complimentary of Texas and the way that they've built their team. And just the schematic piece and then the personnel piece. And that's probably what really stands out. People who have worked with Sark or just are familiar with him have always regarded him as one of the best tacticians in the sport from a play calling standpoint. He just hasn't always had the personnel to back it up. And he's been able to create that at Texas, especially in areas where they've been lacking, like the offensive line. I've been really impressed with the running back position, which was hit with a couple of severe injuries before the year, and they've been able to hold up and continue to make plays at running back. Obviously quarterback situation is one that a lot of teams would be very envious of, to have a guy like Arch Manning who's ready to step in this week and start for Quinn Ewers. But, until Texas, wins an SEC championship or they'll have a great opportunity here against Georgia in a number of weeks on their home field. Those are the games that they're going to be judged by. And then ultimately, can they get into the playoff and win games? So they're certainly on the right track. They've beaten Alabama, which is a big win last year, but you need more wins like that to truly validate yourself as a team to beat nationally.
Billy Napier is probably on his way out at Florida. I mean, barring some sort of miracle resurrection of that team. Who are reasonable candidates for that job if he's out?
Well, I think there's going to be the most attention around a couple of guys that are right now in the SEC, namely Lane Kiffin from Ole Miss. And I think Lane Kiffin is the best fit for this job because of what the Florida job is. And Florida has won, as you know, with creative, powerful, intimidating offenses, coaches that have swagger like Steve Spurrier and Urban Meyer. I think Lane Kiffin take the championships away. He's probably the most like Steve Spurrier in the sport right now, with how he likes to win and have fun doing it, and in some ways doesn't take himself that seriously, which I actually find really refreshing. I think Lane Kiffin is a guy that Florida absolutely should call. Eli Drinkwitz is another coach they should call if he continues on the path to putting Missouri in the mix for the college football playoff. Another guy with an offensive background, another guy with personality. I think someone who would fit really well with what Florida is trying to do. And then, do you look at someone like James Franklin from Penn State, who's been there for 10 plus years, won a lot of games, may make the playoff this year, was coached in the SEC before at Vanderbilt, has recruited in Florida for many years. Heck, I think they should make a run at Josh Heupel. Make him say no. It would be very difficult for anyone to leave Tennessee for Florida, but you got to make that call if you're Florida, because he's exactly what you want in terms of exciting offense, strong recruiter. He's coached in the state. He was a head coach at UCF not that long ago. So I go after Josh Heupel, and there's obviously some others, but I think it does start with Lane Kiffin, and I'd be surprised if it's not a Kiffin, Drinkwitz, someone like that.
Yeah, I know that. I guess the question comes down to, if you're Lane Kiffin, what is better for your short-term future, given that you could make a bunch of money and then not really have to coach into your 60s. But is it Ole Miss right now in the state that they're in and the way he's got everything locked in, or trying to help Florida, reorganize it? I think that's the biggest surprise I've had in all of this with NIL and all the things, that the Gators were so hodgepodge and unorganized.
Yeah, it's been a rougher start for them, but I think there's still a feeling that, when all things are equal and Florida gets its act together from an NIL standpoint, given its location, given the fact that you've had 3 national championships won there in somewhat recent memory, whereas Ole Miss, again, they have a great team this year, but look at how many players are going to lose off of that team. Are they going to be as successful from an NIL standpoint year after year after year? And then you just look at the access to talent. It's really not comparable to look at Mississippi. It's a fine state. There's a lot of good players that come out of there. It doesn't compare to Florida, and the number of players that you're much, much closer to when you're the head coach of Florida. So I think it'd be a difficult decision. Obviously, Lane loves it in Oxford. I think his daughter's in school there. His son's going to come. There's some family reasons to keep him there, but from a competitive standpoint, I wouldn't blame him for taking the Florida job.
Oklahoma State and Utah play this week. It's the first ranked versus ranked Big 12 matchup of the season. Might wind up being the other one. Heck, we don't know how it's going to go. Cam Rising sounds like he's going to play, and then the line moved, and maybe he doesn't. What is your prediction for that game?
Yeah, so much of it is around Cam Rising and the health, and I certainly hope he plays. He's unfortunately missed a lot of time here over the last year plus, and he's a different player. They're a different team when he's on the field. You saw that last season, and it would be a great matchup just with him and Alan Bowman, two of the older quarterbacks in college football, going at it. Stillwater's a tough place to play. This is a veteran Oklahoma State team that was somewhat fortunate to beat Arkansas a couple of weeks ago. I think the line of scrimmage play with especially Oklahoma State's offensive line, which is a veteran group, going against a Utah defensive line that's always one of the better ones in college football, an area that I'll be watching. And then certainly the running games too. There's just a game that Ollie Gordon is able to break out a little bit. Utah has more of a committee system at running back. How do they run the ball against Oklahoma? Can they find Oklahoma State? Can they find some of the same gaps in the defense that Arkansas had in a game where they should have scored more points and probably won the game? So it's a very fun matchup, but it's one that would certainly be enhanced with Cam Rising back on the field.
Last thing I'll ask you about is Oklahoma and Tennessee. Josh Heupel won a lot of games in Norman. Does he win one as a head coach as he goes in there? Because his team looks loaded, and they're playing really well up front. And while Oklahoma's good, they're probably fine. But, I don't know if you can have answers for what Tennessee's got going right now.
Right. Yeah, I mean, watching these two teams play, and I know it's only been 3 games, it's hard to make a case for Oklahoma, even though that they're at home and they've won a lot of games there, and they have good players, as you mentioned, even on the defensive side. Tennessee is just absolutely rolling right now, and Josh has been as he's got to keep it somewhat political, but he wants to beat the snot out of Oklahoma because they fired him almost 10 years ago and really changed the course of his life and his career, and in some ways in a very good way, and got him to learn a new offense and kind of rebrand himself as a play caller. And look at where he is right now with the nation's top offense and a quarterback and Nico Iamaleava, who's certainly on the radar for the Heisman Trophy. So I'm kind of talking myself into Oklahoma being in this game. I certainly hope it is a competitive contest, but looking at what we've seen from both squads, I think this is a Tennessee win.
Adam Rittenberg, ESPN. Adam, what are you working on this week?
Oh, well, just had a couple of pieces come out today. Our weekly Insiders roundtable with Heather Dinich and I. We look at some of the top issues around the country with some reporting that we've done. Also had a story on Illinois wide receiver Pat Bryant, guy from Jacksonville, Florida, who's just had a life that's been shaped by tragedy, but also really impressive person off the field. So I wrote about him, and then I'll have a piece coming up next week, I believe, on how the helmet communications and the sideline tablets are going as new tech has come to college football this season.
Can't wait to read it all, Adam. Thanks a lot. Thanks for hopping on.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Adam Rittenberg, ESPN, with us here on 365 Sports. Next up, Garrett and I are going to get to 4 stories we did not get to in the smokestack, and then David Teal's going to talk ACC with us at 5 o'clock. This is 365 Sports.
When it comes to me and my money, I know the way it should be. I need a partner I can count on. That's Genco and me. Genco is my credit union. They're always there for me. They're people I trust. They treat me like family. My money, my future, my credit union. Genco.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Bambi SQ, what is the number one reason or 2 or 3 reasons, Bambi, that people should contact House of Travel?
As a travel agency local here in Waco, we can take care of all your bookings, your payments, answer your questions, help you when there are issues or problems, things that may come up that you don't know what to do or how to fix them. People don't realize we don't charge a fee for what we do. It doesn't cost you extra to use a travel agent. We're just here. We get paid by the tour companies and the cruise lines to represent them. But you have an expert on your side that's here and local, and you have a name and a face to put together to help you with anything that you may need. Give us a call. We can price things for you. We can help you answer questions. We can make it simple, easy, and one stop.
Your knowledge of all the years you've done this and then spit it back to them or give them options?
Helps us to kind of know a date range, a budget, what your goals are and what you want to see and do on your vacation. And then that helps us to know what to look for, and we can narrow down and help you make the best choices for your vacation so you get the best value. You get exactly what you were hoping for, and making sure that it's taken care of with a carefree, easy, simple for you type vacation. I've been doing this for over 40 years. Every day I learn something new. I experience new situations and things that I can help take care of for people, whether it's just making sure you get the best deals and find the best vacations, or whether it's to solve that problem, like you've got a flight that's being canceled and you don't know what to do. There's weather coming up. Should I cancel my trip next week because of the hurricane? Those are things that we take care of and you don't have to worry about. You've got somebody that you can rely on that you know is an expert, knows what we're doing, have been doing this for a long time, so that you're not questioning, okay, does the person on the other end of the phone really understand what I'm asking or know how to find those deals? You've got an expert, and we are here to take care of that.
For more information, go to houseoftravelwaco.com. Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don's Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Want to send a message to the show? Jump in the Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue chat room.
Welcome back. I'm sorry I've not been to the chat room as much today. When you're flying solo, it's harder to dive in. So, love you all, except for Paxton. I just like you. And Wet Blanket, who I don't think is in there today. All right, let's get to some of these that we did not get to. By the way, just asking, I'm about to ask David Teal about it as well, but Pete Nakos reporting from on3.com, Pete's been on the show as well, that there's no timetable for this ACC and FSU Clemson agreement. So not surprising. Like, there's no timetable for the lawsuit either. That there's nothing that this has to get done in a certain amount of time. And the ACC certainly doesn't have to rush things. Like that's the other thing. There's not a timetable. This isn't something that's necessarily imminent, but it's out there, and you'll see that I do a top 5 about it. I'm very much for it. I think that it's the thing that makes the most sense, even though there's like the different parts of your, like, what is your id, ego, super ego, or your different, like, angel and devil, like the crazy part of my brain's like, no, damn the torpedoes, like, let's see what happens, and then the smart part of my brain is like, hey, wait a minute, like, what's the plan? What's the plan, guys?
My thing with it is, I think anytime you start getting into uneven revenue distribution, you're setting yourself up for failure at the end of the day. And it might take a decade or so, but I don't like it. And especially if you're a team like a Georgia Tech or somebody who's already beaten Florida State this year. And I know it's a one-off with Florida State having a down year, but to me, that's already setting the precedent as that does not matter. Like you're telling you that even though you can go out and win this game against one of these teams, they still mean more. So I kind of don't understand the concept. I don't like that concept. I understand at the end of the day, the ACC is really known and they get their attention off of Florida State and Clemson and what they do and their value to the conference. So I do understand it from that perspective. I just hope this gets settled at the end of the day. I hope Clemson and Florida State stay in the ACC and we can keep this conference intact, because I'm tired of seeing conferences fall apart. While you would see possibly the Big 12 and others benefit from it, I just think having some sense of regionality and holding on to what we have instead of continually trying to destroy it would be better for the benefit of the whole when it comes to college football.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So I think it's just somebody watching, as I want stability in college football, I think this is the best thing. Here is something I learned that I didn't know existed until this week. The Calgorithm is a thing.
It's awesome.
And they are, man, for a football fan base that hasn't had a lot of, anything to talk about, they talk some good crap, man.
They're educated.
They really,
They're educated
and
with
fancy book learning out there. Man, they're thrown out there. But this is one I thought was at least middle of the road enough, right? That wouldn't ruffle as many feathers. But I mean, I've seen 1,000 of these this week. Although part of this, I'm enjoying it. I'm here for it. And I say to all the teams in the ACC, get your licks in while you can.
Right.
Because I don't think this is happening again. Under Mike Norvell, I really don't.
It's going to be a minute, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, enjoy this collapse of a season. That's all I'm saying. Get your licks in because he's shown the ability to build a team and build a team fast. And he will. But Florida State fans, here come your very own participation trophies. We know you're feeling down about being 0-3, but cheer up. This weekend, Cal is bringing participation trophies for each of you to boost your self-esteem. There's no shame in trying your best, guys. Way to go. In any normal year, they would not be able to talk this much noise.
Oh, no.
But you know what? I could sit here and get mad.
I'm all for it.
Honestly, I'm here for it. Especially if this helps motivate the team at all, if any of this hey, wait a minute. We're Florida State. They're freaking Cal. We're the tomahawk chop. They're the bandits on the field. Let's do that. But if not, you know what? I'm also here for you guys have earned every bit of this.
I honestly, low-key, kind of hope Cal wins just so we can see the material that can come out of that. Because if this is just a little sample size, if they're able to pull off that win, it will be relentless on the internet. So I'm here for just that, personally.
Yeah. You know what? Again, I think it's funny, but sure. But 0-3, no place to stand.
No.
Here's the other thing I like about it. I say quite often that we have to live in the now of college football. The Cal fans are doing that.
Yes.
They're not living in the past. They're not living in the past. FSU was just 13-0.
Right.
Just 13-0. Guess what? This is proven that doesn't matter.
Nope.
0-3 is the thing. So I'm here for it. Next up, UCF debuting some cool uniforms. These are the space uniforms for the game this week. I like that black that fades out into white. I would also like if it faded the other way too.
Right.
But I thought it looked pretty cool.
I like the sleeves. So it's looking like you have I don't know what that is, some kind of Orion's belt or something going on there. No, they look pretty good. I like how they always drop the space-themed attire. And I'm looking forward to the rivalry intensifying with Houston as they've named their stadium the Space City. So that should add some extra element to it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Next up, Baylor and Gonzaga are going to play on September 4th in Spokane Arena in Washington and appear to be heading towards a multi-year agreement to open the season. See, I like this for basketball. Open with a big boy, get people that's one of the things that basketball, because for a long time, basketball in November was a waste of time.
Absolutely.
Because you would see a team like Baylor and then they play a team like, I'm not going to say Texas Southern because Texas Southern beat them that time. But they play a team that they're going to beat by 45 points. And they need, believe me, everybody needs those games. You've got to work things out. But as far as creating the buzz about the college basketball season in the middle of college football and the NFL like they are, I've always thought, well, you're starting the season and you're doing this thing we're going to have 24 hours of basketball or whatever, but none of the games are good.
Right.
They're none of them are, well, why do I care to watch it other than there's basketball on? It's just on. That's just what it is white noise. Well, this is not white noise. This is two of the best teams in the country playing each other. And, yeah, I like this. I hope more teams do this to start the season and then, sneak in the middle some of those games against the Texas Southerns of the world and all of that. But showcase your product early and often, and let people know how good this is. Because college basketball right now is in a really good spot. NIL has kind of helped the ridiculous, too many people leaving early for the league. Now, there's still that there.
Right.
But it's not
it's created more parity.
It's created a lot more parity. There's great games all the time. So, yeah, I think this is the best time. This is the best time in my life or in the last 20 years since – college basketball was kind of at its peak to me in my life in the mid 90s, like before everybody kind of started jumping early.
Really before the one and done.
Before the one and dones, like since the one and dones, this is the best time because you do get to see teams play together. You get to see veterans, and then I know the transfer portal in basketball is even crazier than it is in football, but even still, like it's still the most fun and interesting to me as it's ever been. So do more of this. So, tip of the cap to Scott, Drew, and Mark Few.
Well, I think it's cool, too, because, over the past few years, you've seen this kind of become I guess a friendly rivalry would be a way to put it. You have a lot of mutual respect. You've had some staff crossover between these two programs. And they've met, and obviously met in the Natty, but they've met in some other big-time games. So I think it's cool. It's I don't know how many eyes it will draw, because you can make these matchups. We've had Michigan State and North Carolina play on the aircraft carriers and stuff. And while that's gotten some attention, I think football is still, it drowns it out, but it is a good opportunity to try. And the more matchups we can have like this early on and throughout the season, it will only benefit college basketball.
And finally, something I've been excited to talk about all day. Enter Sandman is one of the best traditions in college football at Lane Stadium at Virginia Tech. Metallica is going to play at Lane Stadium, and I'm a middle-of-the-road Metallica fan. I'm not I don't think I could go sit through an entire show.
Right.
I wouldn't, that's wrong. I've always said if there's a big concert that's a good show, I'm going to go regardless of if I'm a super fan or not, if I can afford to. Mm-hmm. That's a big if in concert things. But they have been using Enter Sandman really well for a very long time at Lane Stadium, and now they get to see it performed live by the band itself, Metallica. So they're going to play at Lane Stadium. I think that's really, really cool. I think it's interesting that people are finally getting wise. George Strait played at Kyle Field, and they're having they have these massive stadiums. Why don't you do concerts there?
I don't understand it. I mean, I think you're going to see more and more of this, especially if this turns out to be a success for Virginia Tech, which I believe it will. But it's cool anytime you can see a collaboration with something like this. I think Enter Sandman is one of the best traditions in college football, especially when you see a Virginia Tech program who is good. I know they haven't been that in quite some time, but I think Brent Pry's getting them there. But I think this is really neat, and it's another one of those quirky little aspects of college football that you can kind of not take for granted. But for Metallica to come out and say, we are, to understand the importance of it and to go there, I think it's going to mean a lot to the community of Virginia Tech.
Yeah, I do. I think it's awesome. Sadly, I don't think we'll ever get to see it here.
You're not going to see nothing like that here.
And it's not because Baylor won't try.
Waco's not good at this stuff.
We're awful.
Bro,
we do
bad.
Not understand pre-sale tickets.
So bad.
We do not understand it. Because forever in Waco, you could just buy tickets the day of the event and go to it with pretty good seats.
Yup.
And then the world changed, and Waco's like, no, we're not going to buy tickets till the day of. Well, the promoter needs to know how much money he's going to make. And it's...
I also think that they need to figure out a way, and I don't think it will happen, but if they could properly come up with a way to use Foster Pavilion and create little concerts and stuff in there, I think that would be a game changer. But I don't see them doing that at all.
Oh, it's just, and it's not because Baylor would love it. Baylor would love, a promoter to come in and rent out a 50,000 seat stadium and bring in somebody to play. But nope,
no, not here.
We also have it's also a problem that Austin and Dallas are so close.
That's a big.
That's a real problem because, like why is Justin Timberlake going to come here?
There's no point
when he can play a second show in Dallas that seats 3 times as many, twice as many people. So why would he come down here and they just don't have to set up or anything, and he could do, instead of 1 show at Jerry World, he can do 2 or 3.
Right.
So no, we're not getting Tay-Tay on the next
No.
tour. Sadly enough, we're not getting Tay-Tay. Next up, David Teal, the Times-Dispatch. This is 365 Sports.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year, it's football season. Bird Colgan Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 selling truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, 47 years in a row. Come see the largest showroom in Texas and experience better at Bird Colgan Ford.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is Craig Smokes Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
Sometimes you forget things.
It happens to the best of us.
It is not off the radar. We're very much on the radar. As we welcome in David Teal, who's covered the ACC for a long time, one of the best writers when it comes to that, Richmond Times-Dispatch, and great podcast that he does as well, The Daily Progress. He's writing for them too. So, David, there are reports out there now that that the ACC and Clemson and Florida State are considering a reconciliation of sorts. Is this what's best for everyone involved, and can this get done, and where did it come from?
So many questions, right,
Yeah.
Paul, and so few solid answers. I think your first question is this the best for all concerned? Depends on what the terms of the compromise and settlement would be. What Florida State and Clemson have long asked for, and the rest of the ACC thus far has resisted, is a component to the new revenue sharing model that includes television ratings, television appeal. Now, if the ACC agrees to that suddenly, how far does it go? What portion? What's the formula moving forward? How much could your television appeal be worth to you? Jim Phillips said at preseason media days that a team that wins the national championship in football could earn up to $20 million extra for the school above its normal share of conference revenue. Certainly TV ratings aren't going to be that valuable, but what would the number be? And I think that is what all this hinges on. When you have compromise, everybody has to be able to save face with their constituents. And Clemson and Florida State would have to be able to do so with their respective boards, with their respective fan bases, and the ACC would have to do so with the rest of the membership.
Do you think that they are looking at a scenario right now like there's a thought in my mind that maybe the best case scenario for Clemson and Florida State is actually the worst case scenario, in that they get out and there's nobody that
Right.
wants them, right? So they have that. And then that's also, okay, well, the ACC gets this money that they're going to get from Clemson and Florida State, and paid out over several years. That's going to help them a little bit. But then again, now that there's a legal out, and they could all of a sudden turn into the other Pac-12. So this doesn't seem like there's a lot of winners in this if it doesn't go exactly as either side plans, which nothing ever really does.
Well, Clemson and Florida State would have some place to go. What no one has given any indication of is that it would be a more lucrative place, i.e. the Big Ten or the SEC. Now, if Clemson or Florida State want to go off to the Big 12 or the newly formed Pac 8, 10, 12, 14, whatever it's going to be, well, God bless and enjoy yourselves, because you're just not going to make the same money that you are in the ACC. And if you think the ACC is far flung, wait till you join those outposts. Now, what it comes down to really is these parallel legal cases. It's in North Carolina, it's in South Carolina, it's in Florida. They could drag on for years and years and years and literally end up in the Supreme Court. Because if they don't solve the venue disputes, where should these cases be held? The ACC wants to have them in its home state of North Carolina. Clemson and Florida State want them in their respective home states. If we end up with varying verdicts from varying courts, it's a colossal mess. And untangling it all again could take a prolonged period of time that really benefits no one except the lawyers and their bank accounts.
So do you think there is a chance this maybe gets done before ESPN has to decide about their exercising the extension of the grant or the TV agreement?
Which is February of the upcoming year. And I certainly think, Paul, that would be the goal. That if this is, you want to give clarity to your media partner, in this case, ESPN.
ESPN would be motivated to help out how they could here, because they really don't want this lawsuit either. I mean, this was pretty damning for them, or at least in the sense of some of their trade secrets might be out in open court eventually.
Absolutely, and that's why ESPN fought the Florida Attorney General's desire to have the full television contract be public record. And oh, by the way, other conferences joined the ACC in fighting this, and ESPN, because they don't want their TV deals in the public domain.
Do you think, and we'll talk about games and how this conference is now kind of wide open, but do you think that whatever agreement they came to, there would be an understanding of there's got to be some freedom? Because I know Florida State and Clemson would want the grant of rights shortened in their proposal, which how shortened it would be, I guess, would be up for debate or negotiation, mm-hmm. But where they could come back in with the understanding that Florida State, Clemson, and whoever else wanted to, when that expanded, could explore things in whatever the ever-changing landscape is, and everybody be cool with that?
I think they might be, because, Paul, let's say they shorten the grant until 2030. Mm-hmm. My goodness. Just think of the changes we've seen in the last year or two. You're talking 6 years down the road. Do the power conferences on the football level even exist anymore in 2030? Is football going to break away and just have its own group of 60 or 70 schools that are willing to ante up and pay the full $22 million in house settlement revenue share and really want to go at it at the highest level of football, and then do ESPN, Fox, Apple streaming services, and the like, then negotiate with that conglomerate, and almost like the NFL, where you have various media partners, and do it that way. There are so many unknowns about 6 years from now. If you could get 6 years of, say, so-called labor peace, I think you take it.
Yeah, and isn't it good for the other schools too to like potentially have an out, or not an out, but like where there can be a renegotiation of the television deal that could potentially get them some more money, as opposed to locking them in at a certain rate until 2036, and then the world could have changed around you twice.
Absolutely. And in essence, Paul, if you shorten the grant until 2030 or whatever date, you're betting on yourself and saying, okay, we think we're going to be good enough and valuable enough when the deal expires that we'll have plenty of suitors willing to pay. And oh, by the way, let's not forget the college football playoff will have look-ins with its new contract. And if the ACC wants to bridge that revenue share, where the Big Ten and the SEC get a lion's share, and then the ACC is next, and then the Big 12 is after that. If the ACC wants a bigger slice of that pie, we'll go earn it on the field. And in essence, that's what the ACC would be betting on if it shortened the grant.
So this season on the field has already been pretty interesting. Turns out Syracuse made a really good hire, it looks like, at head coach. Florida State lives and dies by the portal and made a really bad quarterback choice. Cal is 3-0, and their fans are talking as much trash as they possibly can on their way into the Doak this week. Miami. I'm not ready to say Miami's back, but it's as back as they've looked in a very long time. There's some competition up and down the league. What are your thoughts on the overall state of the ACC as it comes to this season?
Agreed on Miami. They certainly appear, 3 games in, to be the class of the league. Now, do not sleep on Saturday in Tampa. Mm-hmm. Because that is a tricky non-conference game for the Hurricanes in South Florida. Alex Golesh in just a year plus has really improved the Bulls program, and I know they're expecting a record crowd at Raymond James Stadium, there where the Bucks play, and it could be just a classic look-ahead game for Miami, which the next Friday night host Virginia Tech in the ACC opener for both. Louisville, I think, has some potential. You mentioned Syracuse. Not only did they hire apparently the right coach, they hired the right quarterback out of the portal, because Kyle McCord, in his first 2 starts in an orange uniform, became the first quarterback in program history to throw for more than 300 yards in consecutive starts. That's pretty remarkable that it had never been done, and he just happened to do it the first 2 times he set foot on the field.
Yeah, absolutely. I wondered why he didn't get more looks from other people, given that he lost 1 game, David. 1 game
dude, to the eventual national champions. I mean, come on.
I mean, I understand that like everybody looks at like they want to look at the measurables and all these things, but 1 game as a starting quarterback, I mean, that to me is something that even if I'm in a transitional period like Florida State is, that's something I would have rather had than DJ Uiagalelei, who's never reached his full potential. I'd rather have, even if he's a total bus driver, someone like Kyle McCord that has won a lot.
Yeah, no, I agree with you completely. it's fascinating. For how long have we heard Florida State folks whine about the ACC television deal and we don't get enough money? Well, Earth to Seminole Nation, you haven't been losing to Ohio State, Texas, and Alabama. You have lost to Georgia Tech, Boston College, and Memphis, 3 programs with far fewer resources than you have, and that devote far less money to football than you do. So money doesn't buy everything.
No. As a Florida State alum, David, I can tell you it certainly doesn't. I went into this year so excited. They're going to be in Dallas next week playing SMU, and I'm still excited to see my friends, but man, it's nerve-wracking. It's nerve-wracking.
It's a bit of a buzzkill.
Yeah, it is. And look, I doing this job allows you, and I'm sure you feel this way as well. We're fans of things. We have our teams that we like and our alma maters and all of that. But once you see how the sausage is made, you can be like, all right, guys, like, I've seen this other places. Let's not go down this road. Can we not be like those people? Can we not be? And then you're like, well, I guess I'll just be the outlier here. And that's kind of how
I hear you. And by the way, Paul, one team we haven't mentioned and a transfer quarterback we haven't mentioned. How about Eli Holstein?
Oh, yeah.
An undefeated Pitt with back-to-back double-digit fourth-quarter comebacks against Cincinnati and then West Virginia in the backyard brawl. Eli Holstein is about to retire the ACC Rookie of the Week honors. And here he is. He never set foot on the field at Alabama. He's got all his eligibility remaining, and he comes into Pittsburgh and wins the starting job. And all of a sudden, there sit the Panthers 3-0, a very winnable game on Saturday against Youngstown State. That'll run the table for them in the non-conference portion and set up a very intriguing conference schedule for them.
Well, and Pat Narduzzi kind of needed this, I think.
Ooh, yes, he did.
He kind of needed this. They are. It's one of the lesser known like football crazy schools, though. But Pitt has a lot of pride about who they were and who they can be, and I think they were. They got excited with Kenny Pickett, and then the last 2 years after that have not been great at all, especially not last year. And Eli Holstein, he was committed to A&M. And then he flipped to Alabama, and now to wind up at Pitt, that was another surprising one to me. A lot like Kyle McCord, we're like, hey, this guy was just at Alabama, and then he decided to go to Pitt, but he didn't even he knew he wasn't going to play at Alabama and all of that, and he chose Pitt, and that's certainly elevated their level.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And they've got the transfer running back from Western Carolina who's doing very well. You find one guy from Tuscaloosa and another guy from Cullowhee, North Carolina. I mean, the portal, you never know.
Yeah. Who is Clemson? Do we know who they are yet, or are we going to have to wait to see when they play some of the tougher teams in the league?
Well, I think we'll know more around 3:30 on Saturday afternoon after the Tigers and NC State have gotten done playing in Death Valley. That's a noon kick, I believe. And, they got run by Georgia. I suspect Georgia will do that to a bunch of people. Last week's game against Kentucky notwithstanding. And then to throw up 66 against, a quality App State program. Is that what Cade Klubnik is capable of the rest of the year in that offense? I don't think many of us question the Tigers' acumen defensively and haven't for several years. But the offense has been a mess. And it's been a mess everywhere. Offensive line, wide out, quarterback. Got to get all those things fixed. And it speaks to player development. It speaks to coaching. Yes, it speaks to Dabo's aversion to the portal in part, but that's just not it. They have continued to recruit well, But the guys that they've signed, the 5 stars and 4 stars, have not played like it. And that's on the coaches.
Yeah. Do you think that I think the weird thing I've always thought about Dabo in the portal is that, you know, I get like that you don't want to build your team that way, and it certainly doesn't make sense to completely, and we're seeing that in Tallahassee right now where you're going to live and die by it. But if you do it like Georgia, who just thumped you, does it, where you take like 7-8 guys out of the portal to go in, that's all I think their fans are asking for, but he seems so adamant against it. The other thing is, what about the kids who aren't mature and who aren't mature enough yet, and they get kind of pulled into the glitz and glam of some of their plays that maybe Clemson didn't roll out all the bells and whistles, but they really liked Clemson more than they say liked LSU, and they get to LSU and they just don't fit there, and then they call up Dabo and say like, look, I'm not, it's not a fit for me. I don't like it here. I'd like to come up to Clemson. You offered him a scholarship just a year ago. Like, why would you not want that kid back if you did really like him and he's just a redshirt freshman?
Well, it's an excellent point, and I'll give you some examples here in the state of Virginia, where at Virginia Tech right now, they're two of they're number one, their best defensive lineman is Antoine Powell-Ryland, a Florida transfer who played his high school ball in the state. Originally went to Florida, didn't work out, came back home to Virginia. The Hokies were glad to have him on the rebound, and he's been an all-conference caliber player for them since. Had 4 sacks Saturday against Old Dominion. And then a defensive tackle who came in, Kelvin Gilliam. He was at Oklahoma for 3 years, didn't work out there. He's a Richmond kid who considered the Hokies start, but didn't bite. Now they get him on the rebound, and he's playing well for them. So I think that speaks to exactly what you were mentioning with Dabo.
Yeah, I've often wondered if he asked a girl to the prom and she said no and then changed her mind. He's like, no, never again. We're not. You said no. It doesn't make any sense to me, but look, Dabo's going to Dabo, and he's got the skins on the wall to prove it. I just wonder if he's building the program in the way that it's going to be sustainable. And I don't know.
Yeah, he and Kirby are the only ones with 2 on the wall, man.
Yeah, exactly. And they just played, and he lost by 31 points. I think that to me would be a wake-up call. I'd be like, okay, we used to be right here on the same level, and then in 5 short years, they're so far ahead of us. Like, what are they doing that we're not?
Dabo has played against Kirby Smart twice and scored 6 points.
Great point, David. That's an ender right there. David, always love having you on the show. Love the knowledge, love the experience, love the podcast, love everything. Thank you so much for hopping on today.
Sounds good, Paul. Thanks for having me.
David Teal with us talking ACC. And see, there we go. I've been trying all this time, and I should have just called the first guy I thought of.
Just 6 points?
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I would not have guessed that at all, dude.
So that, I can sit here and tell Dabo Swinney all day long about portal this, portal that, blah, 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 blah. I can go on,
right,
and he's never going to hear me, right? But I will say this. That point that's just made.
Good God.
He's played Kirby Smart twice and scored 6 points. 5 years ago, they were on the exact same level.
Yeah.
And Georgia has improved, but why are they not on that same track after 5 years?
The playmakers, the portal, they don't have them.
But it's not just and Kirby, he's not going and getting 25 players in the portal. He's got a max of 10. Mm-hmm. He'll go get 10 maximum. And to transfer to Georgia, he can also say, oh, ATN, come on.
Right.
Dominic Lovett, best player at the time was the best receiver at Missouri. Then Luther Burden happened. But Dominic Lovett, come on. Colby Young, come on. Mm-hmm. Those are the ones that he goes and gets. And then, he's got the Vanderbilt wide receiver and the running back that are all those guys, that's what he's doing. He's not building the whole team that way. He's just supplementing where he doesn't have enough experience.
I mean, Texas does the same thing. Texas is doing the exact same thing.
I think here's where I would scale what you should do. If you're a truly elite team, 10 people is really all you need to go get.
Yeah, if you're recruiting right,
you need 10. If you're almost there, you may need up to 15. Anything above 15, and you're in a rebuild, right? So that
20, I would say that.
Yeah, anything above 15. Like 15, you might go get 15 because you got ravaged by graduation on a really good team, and you need 15. But when you start getting above 10, just like, if I'm watching any team, granted, NBA rosters aren't that big, but if they had, let's say they signed 7 free agents in a year,
right?
That would be too many for me. Like I'd be like, well, you need 7 players.
No, you'd only need like 2.
Yeah,
max.
Yeah. If you get 2, like 2 good, like one new really stud player to go with your superstar, or a superstar to go with the guy who needs a superstar to help elevate him, and then a good rotational player. That's a good offseason in the NBA.
Yep.
In the NFL, a good offseason to me is trades and free agency that fill in the blanks that you're not hitting in the draft, or you've got, because that means you're close, that you can go, all right, the Rams are like, we're going to get Von Miller because that's what we need, and it helped get them over the top, right? Yeah. The Cowboys refuse to do this for the most part. But if you do that, if you're a baseball team and you have to bring in 6 pitchers, you don't have a pitching staff.
Correct.
But if you have to bring in 1, like 1 or 2 starters, and then you go get a hitter to add to your lineup, 2 or 3 big free agents is a good offseason. That's a good way to improve your team. If you're a college football power and you have to get more than 15 people, you're not a power for that immediate year. If you have 10 or less, that's a big thing about Nebraska because it meant retention. If you have 10 or less, then then I think that's a good thing. And the only other reason you would have 10 or less is if you just can't get people to go there.
Yeah.
Where they're like, no, you're getting fired, bro.
And then like the complete opposite of that would be when you're back-to-back seasons like a Colorado or somebody, you're just rotating the amount. Like you're not even setting up for the future because you're not recruiting.
Yeah. You're not like, and I get like Deion has to find a way to be able to, like, he's got to get a great high school recruiter that can go get in the living room and then say, hold on, let me put Coach Prime up on the TV here.
There. Yeah.
Let me put him up on the TV. We can't like you guys do not want the people outside your house when they figure out that Deion is here recruiting your kid. It's not, he can't go to the high school game because the minute that like somebody tweets a picture of it, there's going to be people like, hey, do you want to go? Let's all go to this high school game and try to see Deion. Like that's just how it is. I mean, he goes places. We've heard that from a couple different people. When we come back, Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com, breaks down a 44-19 loss to the Saints and what happened to the home field magic at AT&T Stadium. This is 365 Sports.
Waco Custom Marketplace, your hometown grocery store, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, and also the go-to place if you tailgate. Whenever it might be, wherever it might be, Waco Custom Marketplace has charcoal. Right now, it's in fact 10% off at their location through and when they close their doors on Saturday. They have also what you need when it comes to pellet fuel and more. And then, of course, they have the butcher shop, beef, pork, poultry, and also seafood. Tri-tips, brisket. You want it, they have it. They'll cut it to how you want it. Order during the week and then pick it up in time for your tailgate on the weekend. They also have smoked pork tenderloin at $4.50 a pound, ring bologna, Swiss cheese, chicken tenders, and once again, 10% off on charcoal, cold beer, and wine. They have a bakery if you want treats and sweets, and once again, the butcher shop will cut whatever select part of whatever you need. You want something specifically cut for you, they'll do it. Waco Custom Marketplace, the Bauer family, distributing and feeding local restaurants and restaurants throughout the state, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Hi, I'm Dana Hassel, President and CEO of American Bank. Waco is a great place for business, and for more than 70 years, American Bank has been the bank for business. We continue to invest in our growing community with state-of-the-art branches conveniently located to serve you within minutes. Our experienced bankers, lenders, and decision makers work directly with business owners like you every day, providing tailored solutions, timely answers, and local insights face-to-face. Schedule a meeting with one of our bankers today and find out what makes American Bank the bank for your business. Member FDIC.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
He is to humanity what bacon is to breakfast. He is allowed to use his cell phone on an airplane. He is Cesar Leal of Leal's Mexican Restaurant.
I don't always eat Mexican food, but when I do, I prefer Leal's.
Leal's Mexican Restaurant, 9000 Panther Drive in Woodway, 254-772-8140.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing is time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoke, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoke.
Just me today. The smoking section is closed until Monday as they are out doing a high school football game in Mansfield tonight. And then tomorrow they will be in Lincoln, Nebraska for Nebraska versus Illinois. Smokey's first trip to see his beloved Huskers. Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com joins us now. So again, Mickey, it's just you and me here, but I'm very excited for Smokey that he's finally getting to go see the team he has loved unconditionally for so many years.
So he's never gone to a game there before?
He has seen Nebraska play everywhere else he could possibly see them play, but actually at Memorial Stadium in Lincoln. So he's never, ever been to a game in Lincoln.
Well, I wish I'd have known that. I'd have rubbed it in. I've seen several games there.
Well, look, Mizzou used to be a rival, right?
Yeah, it's a Big 8. When I was covering the Missouri football at the Columbia Tribune, I'd go there once every other year.
Yeah. I've never been either, but Matt Rule set him up. I say set us up. I'm not going, but he set him up for the game. Now he told Smokey he will not come on the show again until Smokey goes to a game in Lincoln. So hopefully in the coming weeks we'll have Matt Rule on the show again. But it's been about 6 months.
So short story, I almost experienced my worst fear covering college football. Getting locked in a stadium because you work so late.
Yeah.
And when we finished there one night, Missouri, Nebraska, I swear we had to hit about the 5th or 6th door to try to get out. And I'm going, oh my God, I'm going to sleep here tonight.
That almost happened to us at TCU a couple years ago when Baylor played in the bowl game there. We did the post game, and we did the post game for an hour, and then it was miserable and cold. So like everybody that had a chance to bug out of there left, and we packed up all of our gear from doing 8 hours of broadcast, and then we're walking around, and half the elevators were turned off. So we're like, what are we going to, so I'm calling. Finally we came across the security guard, and I was like, oh my God, this is the worst day ever. So yeah, I've had that panic. It's like, well, hopefully somebody's going to answer the phone, but it's going to be a really grumpy custodian that comes here and is like, these idiot reporters,
Great football fans though.
Yeah.
And they're, I remember the one year I covered the game there in Missouri 1, and when they were walking, had to go underneath the corner of the stands to get in the locker room, and the Nebraska fans that were there stood up and gave them an ovation for how well they played.
Wow.
And I thought that was one of the coolest things. Yeah, they weren't throwing stuff at snowballs or beer bottles at them, right? They were cheering for them, said, good job. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
All right, Mickey, let's dive into it. We've avoided it long enough. 44 to 19.
I know.
44 to 19.
What do you want to know?
44 to 19 was not great. What they had such home magic last year throughout the regular season. The Packers game, I guess, took it away. What happened that the Saints were able to exploit so badly that they saw from week 1? And is it just simply little things, or is this something that people should panic about, although it's just the second game?
But they've already panicked, right? Yeah. So we'll find out more on Sunday. But think about it. You mentioned their home field advantage over the 16-game winning streak in the regular season. But when they played good teams and lost their 5 games, they were all on the road. Think about it. Other than Arizona, 4 of the 5 games they lost last year on the road, they got run on, and all those teams went to the playoffs, except for Arizona. So at home, they did beat Detroit by 1 point, right? Mm-hmm. They beat Philadelphia, but they split, lost on the road, beat them at home. But they didn't really play the same tough schedule at home as they did on the road. So here it was, and here came a team that said, hey, we're running on you. We're going to play 2 tight ends. We're going to play a fullback sometimes with the 2 tight ends and see if you can stop us from running. And the answer was absolutely not. The Saints ran for 190 yards. How many times do you think a team has scored 44 points and the quarterback only completed 11 passes?
Yeah, I can't.
Think about it, right? So it was just so weird and diabolically opposite of going to Cleveland, where nobody was giving the Cowboys a shot in hell to win the game, and they go up there and win and stop the Browns' running game. Now, I know they didn't have their 2 starting tackles, and Nick Chubb wasn't in the game, but still, it was the Browns. It was the dog pound, and they shut them down. And then you come home and you're thinking, okay, you passed your first test. Well, they flunked the second test.
So the running game, stopping the run, has been a thing for the last couple years, where the teams that do run right at them and are able to do that seems to be kind of the thing that even the most exciting defenses have had that weakness in it. And it's because they have not been able to solidify defensive tackle like they want to. And I'm wondering what it is about that position that kind of evades them, because pretty much everywhere else in the field, they've been really good at hitting on guys, but that position lately has kind of escaped them, hasn't it?
Well, it has, And, they tried. They used the first-round draft choice on a defensive tackle, Mozzie Smith, and so far that hasn't worked out. Now, they tried to, try to bring in bigger bodies right there during training camp. Well, Jordan Phillips didn't play very well, a veteran. Linville Joseph didn't play very well, a veteran. And so they tried to address it, and, but they did it on the cheap, right? Because they didn't have a lot of money to spend on that position. And they just got knocked off the line of scrimmage. They played their 3 linebacker set, which they refused to do last year because, number one, they didn't have enough linebackers after Van Der Esch got hurt. But this time they played the 3 linebackers, and they were getting picked off left and right because the defensive front wasn't holding up. Now, we're going to see what happens this week, but problematic is, supposedly Jordan Phillips has a wrist injury, and he's not going to, they're going to put him on IR. And then Mozzie Smith missed practice with a back injury, and they're trying to figure out just what he has. And so, it's like it's just not getting any better. And so we'll see what happens. They signed their former defensive tackle, Carlos Watkins, off the Washington practice squad to bring in at least a big body. But if you can't hold up on the line of scrimmage, boy, you're going to get run on. And hey, this is what Baltimore does, right? Mm-hmm. They didn't just sit here and go, well, we saw what happened. This is what we're going to do. That was what they were going to do back in June. They were going to run on the Cowboys. And they'll do it with 2 tight ends. They'll do it with the fullback. And by God, the fullback's 300 pounds. So, you better buckle your helmets and hope that you can score some points early to maybe nudge them out of their running game and have to throw the ball. Derrick Henry, he's a freak, but 240 pounds and runs a 4.5 and then Lamar Jackson, and it's not Lamar Jackson scrambling, it's they call running plays for him. I was watching one of the games, and they pulled 2 offensive linemen and did a sweep with him. He wasn't no doubt about it, he was going to run the ball. And think about it, when the quarterback's going to run on a called play, that means they got 10 blockers out there. So that makes it even more problematic. So, they're going to have their hands full, but I suggest that the offense keep pace, and maybe they would be able to nudge them out of the passing game. Into the passing game.
And Baltimore's 0-2, so they are going to be really hungry for getting one in the win column too. So they've got a bit of a wounded animal here, or not, I wouldn't even say, a wounded animal that's going to fight like crazy. That, like you said, does the one thing that they really don't want him to do the week after they just got shredded doing it, because that doesn't give you a whole lot of time to fix things. It just
you should be desperate too.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah,
you got 2 wounded animals, and so, but. I was joking with the guys on Monday. I do the segment in mid-morning on the Fan, and I was so tempted, but I didn't think, I was worried my humor wasn't going to fall. It was going to fall flat, so I had to kind of coax it. But I said when they brought me in, I was going to go, first place Dallas Cowboys. They're tied for first place, right?
Yeah.
Now tell me this: when everybody got their schedules in May and they all want to do W and L all the way through, what do you think they had the Cowboys at after 3 games?
2-1, I would say.
1-2.
1-2.
They were going to get beat by Cleveland, that a lot of people were were thinking, they were a Super Bowl contender. They were going to beat New Orleans, and they're going to lose to Baltimore. So, right? No one's picking the Cowboys back then to beat Baltimore. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, 1-2 might be on the horizon. But again, 2-1 could be if they go out there and play at a higher level than they did against the Saints.
Offensively, they are, it looks, especially with like trying to add Deuce Vaughn into the mix, trying to get more burst, more speed out there. So it's not just all on CeeDee Lamb, who we'll talk about in a second, and his potential unavailability for the game this week since he's been out of practice or limited. But what do you see more of that coming? What do you think is the status of maybe Dalvin Cook here in the coming weeks, especially at the running back position, to see what they can get out of it, to get just maybe a little bit more athleticism than they've had?
Can he block up front?
That's probably even the better point.
Because the offensive line, to me, hasn't run blocked very well. Go back and look at the games. How many times have you seen a hole where these running backs can run through? Very few. They're getting met at the line of scrimmage, and it has nothing to do with their running ability. I told you from training camp watching Zeke, he's fine. Rico Dotto can run the ball. He just has to stay healthy, and they tried to put some speed in there with Deuce. Well, they can't even get to the line of scrimmage, and they're got to, try to plunge through for 2 yards. So to me, it's not the running backs. It's the offensive line's run blocking. And we just assume, because they didn't run the ball all that well in the opener, that you plug in two rookies at the two most important positions on the offensive line and everything's fine. Well, and I'm not blaming it on them. They just have not run blocked very well in the first two games. And they haven't protected Dak all that well either. And that was a big problem against the Saints. I think it was 3 sacks, got hit 4 times. And he had 9 passes defense, like batted down. Well, normally when that happens, the quarterback's either rushed or he's getting rid of the ball and not having time to go through his progression. So to me, the key thing on that offense that has only scored 3 touchdowns in 2 games, the 4th touchdown the Cowboys scored was the punt return. 3 touchdowns in 2 games. That's not going to get it. They've kicked 8 field goals and had to settle for field goals because once they get to the red zone, like they were in this game, they were 0 for 3. So, the offense has something to do with this 1-1 record. They were fortunate. They played a good half against Cleveland and then didn't do anything the second half and really struggled against the Saints defense. So I know where the focus is, but I'm not sure the focus is where it absolutely all needs to be.
Last thing, Mickey, is did you foresee this being maybe a transitional year anyway, given the fact, like, we talked at length about the contracts, but like trying to get that worked out, the fact that they knew that they were going to be, in some salary cap position, that they were going to be relying on younger players. Was this a transitional year a little bit, at least realistically, even though, Mike McCarthy doesn't have a contract and all of those other things? Because it's not the first time that Jerry's let a head coach go to the last year of his contract and then brought him back anyway.
There's never a transitional year for the Dallas Cowboys, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's never looked at that way, and not inside and not outside. I thought it could be a slow start until they got the young players, all the young players that they were, depending on, up to speed. If Mozzie Smith needed to play, and now he's got this back thing going on. They got 2 young linebackers that they were going to play. Leofau when they played 3 linebackers, a draft choice, and Overshone when they went to the nickel, he was going to be one of the linebackers. And not saying these guys aren't playing well, but they did lose Sam Williams. And to me, that's bigger than I think everybody thought it was going to be at defensive end, because then if you had him at defensive end, you can do a lot more things with Micah Parsons, not having to put him at defensive end the whole time. And then offensively, you got 2 rookies starting on the offensive line. You're going to rely on your third receiver, who's never been relied on as a third receiver. You were going to rely on your fullback, who's only in his second year. So you were and then Deron Bland gets hurt, and now you got a rookie starting at cornerback among your top 3. So, yeah, I thought, they might struggle early, but get better as the season goes along. We'll see if I'm, out of my mind or what, but we'll see if that happens.
Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com. Mickey, thanks a lot. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, Paul. Good to be with you. Thanks.
All right. Well, I mean, I have middle rung expectations all the time, Garrett.
You should at this point.
I made the resolution. I'm not going to get excited. I'm not going to get too high. I'm not going to get too low until I hear the words, the Dallas Cowboys are going to the NFC Championship game. And only then will I be moderately excited. And then I'll only get excited if I hear the words, the Dallas Cowboys are going back to the Super Bowl for the first time in years.
Yeah, I don't see that happening anytime soon.
I mean, not like in the next 3 years.
No. No. Not going to happen.
But you never know. Never know. When we come back, the top 5. This is 365 Sports.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
And away we go. Here is the top 5 for today. Top 5 reasons the ACC and the malcontents should reconcile. Of course, presented by TexasBeefHouse.com. And look, if you missed the auction this time, there's always another one coming around. Make sure to use our promo code 365Sports for a discount at checkout. Number 5. Nobody wins in this. The ACC is going to lose its 2 premier teams. FSU and Clemson are going to have to pay out a ton of money. And at the end of it, nobody still has a plan for how to make everybody whole again. We'll talk about that in a second for FSU and Clemson. But on the ACC's part, there's a slippery slope to letting your 2 biggest teams leave just because of anger and spite and not working this out. And for Florida State and Clemson, again, what is the plan after you get out? There's no defined thing there. So nobody wins in this, really, if they leave. And that has further reaching complications, which we'll get to coming up. Number 4, to find a way to make the conference better. The best lesson we've learned from Brett Yormark and the Big 12 is, okay, play the cards you're dealt, but find a way to win at the hand. And he has done that at every turn. He pivoted away from what they were when Texas and Oklahoma left, and then he made the conference better. Well, this would not be the same thing because Florida State and Clemson would be staying in the ACC, but you stay together, you innovate, you find ways to make the conference better, make the conference more valuable, and make your media rights deal better. That's what you have to do. That's what the SEC and Big Ten did. That's what the Big 12 is trying to do. Find a way to be competitive, because the problem is, whether Florida State and Clemson are in the ACC or not, if the rest of the league stays together, their television contract is not up and they can't renegotiate until 2036 if ESPN does in fact opt in to keep it beyond 2027, which they are expected to do at this time, early next year. So either way, no matter who's in the conference and who's not, if ESPN exercises that clause, that is your money until 2036. That is the deal that you have. All the other conferences will have been able to go to market twice, and maybe 3 times before you did. And that is not tenable for anyone in that league. That is not good, because the world could leave you behind in 12 years. Number 3, better for all of college sports. Look, we're already in a chaotic period of realignment where you've got Stanford, Cal, and SMU in this league anyway, and especially Stanford and Cal playing all these games all over the country. The ACC and the big, like, there's these just mismatched conferences that are traveling all over the place. And yeah, for football, it's probably not that big of a deal, but for every other sport, it's going to be a big deal. So better for all of college sports that there's less disruption at this time, and finding a pathway forward to stick together is better for everyone. Now, that doesn't really matter, the better for everyone thing, because every school, as we've seen with Texas and Oklahoma, or A&M, Nebraska, Missouri, Colorado when they left the Big 12, or the teams that left the USC, UCLA to the Big 10, you're out for yourself. You have to have your own self-interest at heart first, and that's true, but sometimes that can be catastrophic, as it was in the Big 12 with the Longhorn Network in Texas. They never healed from those wounds until Texas left, really. So don't follow the example of the old Big 12 and capitulate, but also don't be so inflexible that you can't get something done. That's a rule for both sides. Follow that. Number 2, the ACC doesn't become the new Pac-12. There's a very good chance if Florida State and Clemson leave, other teams will leave. It could be 4, 6, 8 teams. Then all of a sudden, you're the new Pac-12 and you're scrambling around trying to figure out who you are, or even trying to exist. So you don't have to do that. You can find a better way, and I encourage the ACC, Florida State, and Clemson to do that before they really jump full into these lawsuits. Look, if there's no way forward, there's no way forward. If nobody can come to an agreement, we have to accept that and deal with the consequences. But if there is a way forward, find it. God's sakes, find it, because it's going to be better. And the biggest thing is for Florida State and Clemson, where are you going? I mean, yeah, I think there'll be interest if they're out in the water, but what kind of money does that mean? Does that mean you close the gap, or are you taking a partial share and you're still only making a little bit more money than you would have had you stayed in the ACC? And how much are you having to pay out? Like, how much money are you making over the next decade, really, with having to pay out to the ACC and all of that, and plus not having a defined home? Look, you could get out, you could win the lawsuits and get out scot-free. Let's just say they win everything. They don't have to pay a fee. They don't have to pay $1 in their ultimate pipe dream world. What if they get out and then the phone rings and it's not the conference that they wanted to call from? And they wait and they wait and they wait, and they have to settle for a conference that they don't want to be in. That, to me, is problematic. And it's something at the end of this that I hope they've considered. I'm sure that there are smart people that have, but right now they don't know where they're going, and they assume that the big bad SEC or the almighty Big Ten will give them a call. And maybe they will. More than likely, I think if they're in the water, somebody's going to go and try to get them. But maybe it won't happen. And then you've done all this for nothing, and you're still in a pickle. You don't want that. So I encourage the ACC, FSU, and Clemson to find a way to get it done and put like the egos aside and all of this and figure out what's best for all of you together, as opposed to 2 separate or 3 separate entities. Do that. It's going to be better. It'll work out. And if you can figure something out that gives everybody flexibility and maybe not tied to everything until the middle of the next decade, maybe that works out for everybody. I don't know. Call me an optimist. I believe in mankind. Garrett doesn't believe me when I say that at all.
Not really.
I believe that this can get done. if cooler heads will prevail. I hope it will. Call me naive. That's fine. But I think this is better for everybody. Just ACC, don't completely capitulate, and Florida State and Clemson, make sure that you show some flexibility and do it. Just make it better for the long term. Just try. Just try. That's going to do it for the show today. Thanks to all my guests. We're back again tomorrow. Connor O'Gara, Josh Neighbors, a cast of thousands. We'll have our Great Friday show. We'll also hopefully get to hear from the Smokes from Lincoln as Smokey experiences Nebraska for the first time ever in his very, very long fandom. Very long fandom of the Nebraska Cornhuskers. I'm going to say it again. Very long. He's an old man. He's an old man. This is 365 Sports. Have a great night, everybody.